Hello, one and all, and welcome back to the reading room for another debate dissection where we're taking apart a brand new, or really a rather older debate, but it's a brand new debate dissection for us. And I'm joined by my wonderful and apparently robotic co-host, Ember. How are you doing, Ember?
It's alright. It's alright. I just since we were getting all spacey, I thought it
Yeah,
might
we're
be fun
getting
to have like
spacey.
it's almost a space helmet. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it counts. And you were playing Starfield earlier, which I'm kind of a little jealous of, and that's cool. Um, yeah, I think yeah, this debate I've really been looking forward to. I just got up, so I'm so tired, but I think I'm looping back round to I'm looping back round to excited kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've had that happen a few times in my life where you're just your energy levels just right in that spot where you're like,
Uh-huh.
let's do the
Uh-huh.
thing.
Uh-huh. Mm. And this one I was sort of talking about before we started. This one was a bit of a weird debate because yes, it's a debate. It was on Intelligence Squared. Um, it kind of was more just a series of four speeches rather than a sort of back and forth kind of thing. But
Hmm.
it's one of the real famous ones. I think mostly because um, so I mean, Hitchens is Hitchens. He is one of the most, or was one of the most effective debaters ever to step upon a stage. His vast knowledge and ability to um, reduce things to very appreciable and very easily understood chunks and point out absurdities is a fantastic. But he didn't really have a weak spot because Stephen Fry is a very intelligent guy. This
Mm-hmm.
this cannot be understated, and his depth of knowledge is actually incredible. He used to host a show in the UK called QI, which was all these facts, and he was actually probably the smartest guy on the panel. Just an incredible man. We love Stephen Fry in my household. Absolutely adore him just because of his outspoken support of the LGBTQI, and his wonderful caring attitude is just amazing. So I don't know who would be silly enough to go up against these two individuals, but apparently they found them. And apparently they're not very nice people either. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy
Shock.
for them. Yeah, and we can talk about it. Well, one is a bishop from Kenya who has said some pretty controversial stuff. And the other is a MP from the UK, a member of parliament. So that would be sort of somebody from, they call it the House of Commons over there, the lowercase, so the equivalent of the US Congress, who is she's awful, and the things that she have said in the intervening years when I was looking her up was just awful. Like, she suggested that science would one day find a cure for gay people, like to cure gayness. Oh yeah, yeah. There's that. When she was asked, like, sort of what they should do about people in the UK, because they're going through austerity measures at the moment, just basically a tightening of the belts, essentially, that they, less spending. When she was asked what they should do when people couldn't afford a cheese sandwich, she said, well, if you can't afford it, you really should go without, kind of thing.
Not
So,
not
well,
even not even a let them eat cake. Just
no, and
fuck
that's
you then.
exactly what my wife said. She said, "Gee, Mary Antoinette had a better position on that one." And I'm like, "Yeah, like just awful stuff. A long line of really, really, really horrible stuff." So she is not a very nice person at all. Um, I think that she's part of sort of a upper class in England that is, if they could have the aristocracy back in a second, they absolutely would. So these are the people defending the Catholic Church. So, or silly enough to go up against Hitch and Stephen Fry. So, but it's a fantastic debate, and we can get into it. It is a rather long one. I can cut the questions off the end, and that's fine. I left them on there just in case. But yeah, it still is pretty long. So we'll see how we go. We might have to split it into two, but it's okay. I'm all right with that if we need to. But yeah, it's a fascinating one, and I'm glad that we're watching it again. I'm very, very excited. Very excited.
Yeah, there's some of the greatest one-liners in debate history in this one.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'll get it up on the thing. Do you have anything else to go through? Any other things to go through before we get into the dissection? Before we mask up and scrub up and start to pull this thing apart?
Oh, I think I'm pretty good. It's been a while since I saw this. I remember watching it on
Mm,
well, it must have been on YouTube. I don't think I've ever seen it. It's been so many years since I've seen television, but
right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I
it really
definitely saw
left
it
a
on
mark.
YouTube. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was the first time I really saw Hitchens in his element. And yeah, it was incredible, like it really was. I really did enjoy it. I just get their full name. So yeah, it's Anne Widdecombe. She is absolutely a terrible person, I found out. Like the controversial thing that she said is just horrible. Yeah, so let's get this up. Sorry, I'm just getting organized, and I like my view like
Yeah.
this. So this is, and I'm gonna butcher the name, John Onaiyekan. Onaiyekan. For the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world from 2009, which it doesn't sound that long ago to my old ears, but that is yeah, a fair while ago. It's like 13 years ago, sorry, 14
Yeah.
years ago,
A lot can
15 years ago,
change
yeah, something
in
like
a
that.
very short time.
Oh, and yeah, thank you so much, Robin, for gifting that. I've got a few things to go through. I've got Pinworm for $5. Thank you so much, Pinworm. Mark Reed, supplier of facts, purveyor of truth, dealer of entertainment. Yeah, I deal entertainment. Yeah, I deal it out to people. Yeah. Thanks, Pinworm. I really appreciate it. I try my best. I really do. I'm going to get stuff wrong. Everybody's human, and you slip up and stuff. It's fine. I try as hard as I can, and that's okay. But thank you so much, Pinman. I really appreciate the support. We have Left-Handed Jedi with BAM, 5 readerships going out there. And I'll try and find who that actually is. Yep, it's Peter Guns, Andrew Christopherson, Blaster Master, Carrie Ann Chrysler, and Mr. Anderson. Congratulations. Enjoy your
Nice.
emotes. Chicken. Winner, chicken dinner. There we go. I'm too tired. It's too early. It's too early, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Yeah, and Mr. Anderson, you on the scene, great guy. And yeah, thank you so much, Left-Handed Jedi, and of course the remarkable and wonderful Robin. Already lashing out. Sounds like it's vindictive. No, Robin's lovely. She's not hitting anybody. Darren Delaney was gifted a readership by Robin Webster. Thank you so much, Robin, and always thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. And winner for good old Darren. And a $10 super chat from Jake Nelson. Thank you so much, Jake. What I have learned from Mark and Ember, the epistemic value of your evidence must meet the epistemic bar of your claim. Absolutely. Absolutely. In a certain way, it's sort of denoted by you know, remarkable claims need remarkable evidence, or that
Mhm.
kind of thing. Which I think was that Sagan that said that. I can't remember who said that. It might have been
A
Sagan. It might
lot
have
of
been
people
Delahunty.
have. It's
Yeah, and I think there's a truth to that, but it's more even just depending on the context and how much I think even ordinary claims require some form of evidence. I
yeah,
think that,
yeah, exactly. The
yeah,
extraordinariness, the whether it's common or rare or
yeah,
unique or whatever, the level of
absolutely.
evidence needs to meet the level of difficulty for the claim,
Mm,
as opposed to what our friend Bill does.
Far from raising the bar or the epistemic
yeah.
standard that Christianity must meet to be believed. I lower it.
Yeah, that is an incredible statement from one of the premier um, apologists for Christianity. You know, that is an incredible statement, absolutely, because that's basically saying, hey, if it does not warrant belief, just lower your standards. Just incredible. You know, I
Mhm.
don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
have you heard his
absolutely.
latest? He was on with
Uh
Alex O'Connor, and Alex was, doing his thing, fluffing him up
yeah,
and
sure.
and saying, I respect you as a thinker, as a philosopher, and then Bill comes back with this.
It was actually a tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven and be with God.
Yeah, he said that kind of thing before about the children in the flood and the children of the, peoples that the Israelites
Mm-hmm.
slaughtered. He said that kind of thing before.
Great
Yeah,
thinker,
but
folks.
yeah, it's a bit of a problem, really. It's a bit of a problem. But yeah, don't lower your epistemic bar, especially if the claim gets, greater. Raise the bar. Don't lower it. But thank you, Jake. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
good to have you
I
back,
can
Jake.
absolutely, absolutely good to see you. Did Jake go away? Was Jake on
He
a
was
sabbatical?
gone for a little while,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Jake.
traveling
Welcome
the
back.
universe.
Oh, that's fantastic. I Killed Earl is back with as well with 5 readerships. I don't think Earl actually went near there, but thank you so much, Earl. I really appreciate it. I'll get through all of this. Trust me, people. I will get through all of this. And enjoy. KCA Randy, Govan, Paul Brown, Jason Hyatt, and Time Lord. Okay, we've got Doctor Who in the chat, or as a readership now.
Another Gallifreyan.
Another absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Earl. Really appreciate it. And I guess that's all I wanted to go through. We are ready to start. Thank you so much. And there is a new emoji. There is now a Lynn Love emoji because someone suggested I use my wife and she consented. So there is now a new emoji. So that's my wife in a pink bunny ear hat. I don't know. Did you ever see Bob's Burgers?
I saw the movie at the drive-in.
Right. There's a girl in it that wears a pink hat with bunny ears on it.
Yeah,
And she has that hat and she loves that hat. So,
nice.
she yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe it's just me that loves my wife. I don't know. That's good enough for me. But one thing we do love is debate. So let's get this on the road. And first up is John. How am I going to pronounce the name? Onaiyekan. 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 I'm so sorry if that's a
All right. So first, I want to note it's standard uniform for bishops and cardinals and stuff that they have
yes.
the head covering, just like Jewish people do. Often they have big hats, but
Right.
they have to have some kind of head
Yes.
covering. But the
Yes.
frickin' bling, like if you're gonna talk about Catholicism being a force for good in the world, and your
Right.
first speaker rocks up wearing, I don't know, the average American's median household income for the fucking year, like, how do you make that case when you're saying, look, people are starving, but I have this giant golden cross around my neck, studded with diamonds and shit. I mean, it's probably not diamonds; it's low quality video, but still, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, he looks. I mean, he wouldn't be out of place on a rapper, would it? Really?
Yeah, just switch it for a clock, and you've got a
Right. Well,
what's
I
his name?
mean,
Flavor.
mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably guessing it's just silver, but still, that's very ostentatious. Like the Pope doesn't go around with a massive cross like that, as far as I know. It seems kind of it's tone deaf. You're absolutely. I didn't even notice that, to be honest with you. That's very tone deaf.
Yeah, like I mean, if it were wood, then even if it were big, it'd still just be like, okay, it's an affectation of his religion, whatever. But that's a lot of jewelry points thrown in there, you know?
Right, right. How many people could that cross feed? Just asking, just throwing it out there. But we know that the Holy See or the Vatican is very, outrageously wealthy, just incredibly wealthy. So yeah, the Pope has a lot of bling too. Would not surprise me. But the Pope's got a very fancy hat.
He does.
Very much for this wonderful introduction. I see her face so often in BBC. It's nice to see her live. Friends, I certainly must say I'm grateful to be here for this occasion, and I thank Nick Pisani, our friend, for bringing me here. Not only for bringing me to this occasion, but for giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic, because for me, it's more than a matter of debate, because that's what my life is all about. If I didn't believe that the Catholic Church is a force for good, I would not devote my whole life to precisely working in that institution.
I don't know about that. You seem to be doing very well out of the Catholic Church, judging by that bling you've got on.
Right.
So I don't know about that. Like, yeah, and whether or not you believe it's a force for good, I think you need more than that. I'm sure the Nazis thought that the Hitler's regime was a force for good, right?
Sure did, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, "I'm going to be evil today." No, they make excuses for the horrible things they do so they can pretend that they're doing good. Like,
Yeah.
Somebody who wants to say, justify murdering children.
It was actually a
Right.
tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven and be with.
And that's how it goes. That's how it always goes. Oh, I'll just
Mhm.
rearrange the idea and twist it and shift it until
Yep.
it's a good thing, actually.
And that leads you down some very bad roads. Like, I remember a lady was prosecuted in Australia, and this is, a full warning, this is pretty horrible. She unalived her kids because she thought that they were sinful and it would be better if they went to heaven now. But as much as you say, hey, that's ridiculous and stuff, if you follow the logic of William Lane Craig there, you can get there fairly easily, right? If it's a blessing for these kids and all that's happening is they're going to sin when they grow up, and everybody sins when they grow up, according to the evangelicals, it's better for them not to grow up. And that is a chain of logic that you can get to. And I absolutely, it's disgusting and it's horrible and it's an awful way of thinking, because that is the logic. That's where the logic will lead you. And that's awful.
Yeah. Some people have suggested that the reason the Catholic Church, back in the day before the schisms and whatnot, pushed this idea of sin afflicting the human even before they're born. So there is no innocent newborn. You're already born into the world with original sin, was to keep people from murdering their children so they'd get a shortcut into heaven. They'd be like, no, that doesn't work. You have to actually raise them and baptize them and so forth, because if you kill them first, they're going to hell for original sin and you're going to hell for murder. So maybe don't do that.
Yeah. Well, and, it's flipped back the other way recently, because the awkward question comes up about, 5-year-olds burning in hell because they stole a candy bar kind of thing, or people that, kids in Kenya or something haven't been baptized and are, being sent to hell just because they've never even experienced, what a missionary looks like. So these awkward questions came up, so they've kind of flipped back the other way. Yeah, I do want to point out too, and Robin's, I'm so sorry, Robin. Yes, Robin Webster did suggest this debate, and we thought we'd already done it. So this is definitely a Robin Webster special. I'm so sorry, Robson. I forgot to mention that, and you're absolutely right. You did suggest it, and is definitely so. So if this goes badly, everybody blame Robin, basically. As well. No, it's perfectly fine. It's a fantastic suggestion, and I 100%. Robin, thank you so much for supporting the channel. You do so much. We absolutely adore you. Yeah. William Lane Craig is nothing but sus, quite frankly. Like the Pascal's wager, the lowering the epistemic bar, everything. Like, he used to be very well respected, and now it's kind of like, ugh. Like
the bitch of it is that his arguments are pretty much the same as they always have been. Like he's been doing the same tricks long enough that people are able to see through the facade. It's not like he's taken off the mask. It's just like when he made that argument from math that was the same as his argument from morality, except he's using math instead of morality, and people are like,
correct.
I've heard this trick before,
Yeah. And here's the thing, it's like none of these things that he puts out there in philosophical circles actually convinced him. It's Pascal's wager and practicality, like it's easier on his life if he's a Christian, and he has nothing to lose by being a Christian, while everything to gain is in his mind. All of this sort of philosophical arguments, theological arguments, the fine tuning that he does, all of this stuff is just to justify his preconceived belief ahead of time. And we've got a $10 super chat coming in from Jake Nelson. Thanks so much, Jake. I really appreciate it. According to the religion I was raised in, my daughter is not going to help because I chose not going to hell because I chose, is that help? Because I chose not to have a guy in a robe sprinkle magic water on her head. That is not love. Do better, Theas. Yeah. My daughter is going to hell, because I chose not to have a guy in a robe sprinkle magic water on her head. Yeah, just it's ridiculous.
Isn't that weird? How the Catholics, that there's more steps, but most of the Protestants, the evangelicals, they're like, oh, we know Christianity's true because everybody else, it's works based, but in our Christianity, it's purely by faith. All you have to do is several things that are works. Like it's not just having faith. You have to confess, and you have to go get baptized, and you have to do all. No, those aren't works though. It's just faith.
And the idea that in order to be forgiven for something, you've got to ritualistically cover yourself in water. Why? Like, is that any, like, when you're talking about making amends and making reparations to people for the wrongs you have done, because we all do things wrong. We all do things that, instead of being contrite and going to somebody and saying, hey, I'm really sorry, I did not mean to hurt you. Instead of that, I have water sprinkled on my head in order to take that off. That is the most ridiculous. Can we please stop living in like the 18th century where in some way dunking your head in a bowl is gonna take away all of the terrible things that you've done? Like it's wishful thinking. It's smoke and mirrors. It really is just a ritualistic imaginary thing to make yourself feel better. Stop.
Or at least, own up to the fact that it is a blood cult. In the ancient Jews, they splashed each other with blood. They freaking murdered animals and sprinkled blood all over the altar. That was a blood cult. Christianity's supposed to be a blood cult. You're supposed to be bathed in the blood of Jesus. So what's up with all this water business? Bathe in blood. Just do it.
And I was never baptized. I haven't been baptized. I don't see the point. I'm not silly enough to think that just dunking my head into some water that some guy in a dress has decided is special is going to do anything. Like, we've got to get out of this fantasy land. The things that I do wrong, I've got to make amends to the people I've wronged, not sort of make it square with some imaginary friend. Like, we've got to start growing up as a species and realize that, these rabbit's feet and these sort of lucky charms that we have aren't doing anything really for anybody. Anyway, let's get back to the debate. I think my rant is over. Yeah.
Welcome to the Reed rant.
Reed rant incoming. Yeah, absolutely.
Hoping that I am involved in something that is good for the whole world. And I believe that this conviction is not without reason. And I hope that before before my 12 minutes is over, I would have given enough reasons for it. You see, for me, to be a Catholic is a gift of God, but a gift that I received through my parents. And my parents, permit me to digress a bit. They were the first generation of Christians in my village. And my father really believed strongly. He went beyond the wonderful traditions of our traditional religion and embraced the Christian faith because he saw in it something better. Not because he didn't like our religion, but he saw something better. And he remained faithful to that to the very end until he died at 91. Now, I'm 65 years old, and I've made my own journey too along this line.
He's looking real good for 65. Can you just say that? Like, he's looking real good for 65. But yeah, he's basically saying, hey, my parents indoctrinated it into me. And he's appreciative of that. Okay. Why should anybody else believe it? You said you had all these reasons, but you basically are just saying, hey, my parents indoctrinated me. Can we get to the reasons? And I mean, it's not getting into why it's a force for good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the discussion or any of the premises underneath it.
Right. Oh, Jake, thank you so much. Don't bankrupt yourself, Jake. Seriously, mate. I don't want you to thank, but I really do appreciate it. I absolutely do. Booba Sweat, Titan Uranus. Oh, you hit Titan. Well done. Michael Fracker, Joe Hatway, and King James Only was all gifted a readership. Congratulations. Enjoy your emotes and your other privileges. Thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's really good to see you again. Absolutely. Yeah, thank Jake for that one. Thank you, Jake.
And so far, with no regrets. On the contrary, I'm daily, every day, more convinced that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world. Let me proceed by.
Why? Are you going to get to why? Like, I'm convinced more and more that the Catholic Church is a force for good. Now, let me talk about this other thing. Why? Come on.
We don't need no stinking reasons.
Yeah, let's just declare it. I declare the Catholic Church is force for good.
Trying to unpack some of the major elements in this topic. Let me start with the word church, the Catholic Church. Obviously, it means many things to many people, but I think as an archbishop, I should be in a position to say what it does mean, especially to us Catholics. Yes, the Catholic Church is an institution, and some people say it is perhaps the best organized institution in the world, but that's not really the essence of our church. We should go beyond the institution, and for us, the church is first and foremost a community of believers. And this is a community of believers that is spread all over the world, made up of all kinds of people. And the institution itself, as well as those whom we can normally consider church people dressed up like me, for example, we are there only because of that huge community of people who are Catholics. I'm stressing.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't disagree with what I'm saying. I'm just sort of saying, well, yeah, you've got a community of people that has a systemized governing control that is related to a sort of structure that occupies part of our society, which is like sort of literally the definition of an institution. Like, name an institution that doesn't have a community in it. You know, you might talk about sort of medical institutions and things like that. Well, they all have a community associated with it, whether that be a community of nurses or doctors or whoever it may be. They all have a community. I don't understand his point. I think he's trying to say, hey, it's something special because it's large and multinational. I don't know.
Well,
it's like saying, sorry, go ahead, Emma. I'm sorry.
It's not super clear, but I got a general vibe that he was trying to say that because there's this huge community of Catholics, there have to be hierarchs to take care of them. Even if you wipe out all the bishops and cardinals and so on and so forth, the community will just elect new ones because there needs to be a patriarchy for reasons.
I mean, that's true, but we're not discussing whether it needs a structure. We're discussing whether that structure is in fact a force for good. For instance, what's another institution? Just Boy Scouts, for instance, right? That's an institution, and it has a community behind it. And if you took away the Boy Scouts, the actual institution, it would just elect new leaders and form another institution. Sure, but what we're not discussing is whether that institution should or ought to exist or will exist if we take the current one away. What we're discussing is whether the current one is actually a force for good in the world or whether it does harm in the world. That's what we're discussing. So he's off topic again. He doesn't.
I can't blame him, though. If I were in his position, I wouldn't want to discuss whether the evil thing that I was doing was a force for good or not either. I'd be like,
right.
Ad populum and deflection and whataboutisms all over the place.
Oh, yeah. And sort of especially at the heels of about this time, I mean, 2009 is right just after when the, prosecutions of the Catholic Church priests had gotten really underway, and Ireland had that big prosecution. I wouldn't want to defend that church at that point either. Actually, I never want to defend that church, come to think about it, but that's me. I think that the Catholic Church has done irreparable harm and deserves to compensate certain people in the world it has harmed.
I don't know if they have enough money for. They have all the money, but I don't think they have enough money for all the harm they've done.
Yeah, maybe there's not enough money in the world for the amount of harm that they've done to people. Absolutely. No, that's a fair point. I get you.
Saying this so that when you are asking yourself, is the Catholic Church a force for good in the world? Don't look at me. Don't look at Benedict XVI. Look at the Catholics all over the world. Wherever there is a Catholic, there is the Catholic Church. This is the church that we are talking about in this debate. You meet them, you meet Catholics all over, wherever you are.
Yeah, but that's. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's sort of saying, like take my Boy Scout analogy. Don't judge the Boy Scout Association for harming children. Judge the people in it for what they've done. Is that even fair? Is that like he's trying to take the moral accomplishments of the members as a product of the church, and perhaps that is fair, but I don't think it necessarily is. I think that those were just good people, and that they may not have persecuted gay people against the will of the church in their lifetimes. So they may have been good people in spite of the Catholic Church rather than because of the Catholic Church. So
that's usually how it goes. Remember, the Catholic Church sponsored the Inquisitions and the scientists who brought us into the present. Many of them were Catholic, but they did what they did in spite of the church.
Well, true. And they supported the Nazi regime, and the Nazis were mostly Catholic. So if we have to take into account all the good things that Catholics have done, we also have to take into account all of the wrong things that Catholics have done. And I'm not sure he wants to go down that route with, the majority of people in the Hitler regime in Germany circa World War II being Catholic. That was... Yeah,
I think he's got a little bit of a, maybe he's doing it intentionally, maybe it's just instinctive, but it's the thing that Catholics have been doing their entire lives. Everything good that happens, God gets credit for. Everything bad that happens is your fault because of sin.
Right.
Every single thing. So it's only natural for him to make that same kind of degree of projection with the church. Like all the good things the church gets credit for, all the bad things, those are deviant priests who need to repent or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
That the church is a force for good in the world seems, obviously to me, is quite obvious. The question probably we should ask is, what kind of force? There was once an arrogant dictator who asked in disdain, how many battalions has the Pope? Obviously, he completely missed the point. It's not about military force or physical force, but it is about force. It's about the force of a spiritual message. the force of values, which has stood the test of 2,000 years, and not only 2,000 years in time, but has spread its message all over the world among different kinds of people, different races. And it is a force that is made up also of the spiritual and the moral values that the faith carries with it. We know.
All right. I don't know if he should be talking about moral values.
Right?
The church the Catholic Church has been dragged kicking and screaming into secular morality over the last couple of 100 years. Like, there is no, I mean, we're talking about a institution. Like, forget the community thing. The institution itself propped up aristocracy all over the world for hundreds of years. It was the divine right coming from them. I found out recently that the Catholic Church only just sort of officially repealed the doctrine of discovery, which was that if you found a place, you could just claim it because the church gave you the right to. Like, this is the kind of thing that the church has propped up over many years. That if you were a Catholic Spanish gentleman and you came across a new land in the Americas, you could just claim it under the doctrine of discovery because no Catholic had ever discovered that land. This is what that church has propped up over the years.
Yeah,
you want to talk about moral forces? Yeah, sorry.
It was an evolution of empire. Like, the Catholic Church is a big part of what killed the Western Roman Empire and what led to the eventual fall of the Eastern Empire over many years. But that's a whole other thing. It was really just a sort of a reincarnation. The old empire had to die so the new empire, the spiritual empire, could ascend, and they used their spiritual power to justify kings all over the place, aristocrats, and so on and so forth. It was still functionally an empire. Like, now you call it a tithe, but you're still paying taxes to the throne with all the power that's backing up your power. It's just now they're kings instead of feudal lords, and the feudal lords are under the kings, and it's just another layer. And the church insert themselves financially and spiritually, and they, of course, they were in favor of discovery and conquest, because whichever kingdom planted their flag in a new land, it still expanded their empire. Yeah.
And their spiritual empire. And even to this day, don't forget that the English kings and queens are they're crowned by the Catholic Church, or a church in some way. I think it's Church of England now, but the Catholic Church used to do all kinds of nations throughout Europe. And that only changed when the British monarchy rejected the Catholic Church in favor of the Church of England, over sort of, the big schism.
Henry VIII wanted more divorces.
Henry VIII won, basically. But, this is the legacy of the Catholic Church, and it was the first one. Like you said, it's been around for 2,000 years. And how have they been at the... Yeah, I think so. I mean, you could argue that.
Like, if you want to go all the way back to Peter, and a lot of Catholics will say Peter was the first pope, but the church didn't really get organized as when Paul was running around, it was a bunch of independent churches who all broadly believed the same things. They didn't even get their story straight until the canonical councils in the 5th century, and then establishing the hierarchy. I mean, the Great Schism was about whether Rome or Constantinople should be the seat of ultimate church power.
Right.
They couldn't agree on that because they both wanted it, and that's what that split is. That's why the Eastern Orthodox Church exists today. So I don't know that he can really claim Catholicism is much older than Islam, really, because it's hundreds of years after the fact.
But, according to their story, their their narrative, it goes all the way back to Peter. So, Peter was the first pope, and basically it was AD 30 or so when it got started, because as soon as, Peter embodied the church, he was the stone upon which Jesus's church was built, basically. So, I think, you're absolutely right. Like, the Catholic Church did not exist at the time of, as soon as Jesus died, it wasn't like there was a Catholic Church running around, and the early church fathers were not Catholics. They did not do the same things that Catholics do today.
Yeah, they were still
yeah.
Jews for a very long time, with the exception of Paul, and it was Paul bringing in the Gentiles. It's Pauline Christianity. The rest of Christianity were heretic Jews that eventually got run out of the Holy Land. The Christianity that people worship today is Paulism, really.
Oh, and Hooligan gives 1 readership, and I want to wish Justin a very happy birthday. Happy birthday, you terrible Canuck. I love you. Take care, mate, and I hope you had a fantastic birthday dinner. Yeah, absolutely. But
Thoughts and bears.
I'm gonna thoughts and bears. Yeah, not she bears, because they have a tendency to rip you apart if you're bald.
It's true.
So I don't like she bears. Yeah. It's
but
big shout out to
Justin earlier about Canadian birthday cake, whether it comes with bacon or just cheese.
Maple syrup. You didn't ask maple syrup. How could you say you talk about Canadian food without mentioning maple syrup? But thank you so much, Justin. I so appreciate your support, mate. And Justin actually does more for the channel than you realize in the back rooms, and is a great guy to have a play a game with. I'll tell you that right now. Titan, he's here to look good at 65 when you don't have to work. Okay, mate. Yeah.
And also,
Titan your anus. Titan your anus.
I need to add more clips to it, but I just got the buttons back. I just got them recalibrated, so it's fine.
I'll have to do one at some point. Titan your anus. There you go. There's my clip.
We should just everybody record one and send it over Discord, and I'll make like a big long thing that we'll play sometime.
Ems will create a 24-hour stream with just those clips playing from everybody over on a loop forever. It will be our gift to the world, if you will. And we'll
never tell the theists what it's about.
Nice, I love that. What is this thing about Titan Uranus? It's a secret. It's an esoteric secret of the atheists.
Yes, you have to be initiated into our temple or so. Like, you have to be bathed in 3 tapioca weasels and receive the confirmation from the goddess Maya and
goddess Maya.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You have to be bathed in weasel juice. Oh
no! Oh no!
Oh no! I regret it as soon as I said it. I really.
We are not the only ones with those values, and especially we share it with other Christians, and we even share it with others who believe in certain strict values about life.
Yeah, but those values, they've changed over the years, and they started out like kill anybody that doesn't believe in your particular form of God. It's not like they've always had these moral values. The idea that non-believers are to be accepted and, sort of given equal status in society, they had to be forced into that position. Let's not forget that. Like, we shouldn't forget that these were not, or rather, there was individuals who were in the church that pushed for that kind of thing. I certainly am not crazy enough to deny that, but the institution itself and the representation by their official leader did not willingly go into giving up their power. Like, it's not like they said, "Hey, we have too much." The Pope said, "Hey, we've got too much power. We've got to change our stance here." No, they were forced into it by people, saying, "Hey, the church has too much power. It has got to have some of this removed."
And we believe the world is a better place the more there are values that guides activities. The church is a force for good in what it teaches. And I want to refer especially recently, our Pope wrote out an encyclical letter, which is our own, a most a most authoritative teaching in a document he called Caritas in Veritate, meaning charity in the truth. And there he not only analyzed the problems of injustice in our world, but actually came out with very, very, very interesting guidelines to assist the world to come out of its present confusion, if they would only listen. We must also not forget the sheer weight of the number of Catholics. I've checked the statistics, and we are told that now we have about 1.2 billion Catholics all over.
Is that a support for a force for good?
And popular.
Surely that's, well, it's kind of neutral, right? It's kind of, well, it could be a force for good. It could, sheer weight of numbers is not generally a force for good. I think Terry Pratchett, who I adored Terry Pratchett as a writer, he said the intelligence of any mob is the average IQ of the mob divided by the members. Like, really, like the amount of members, like really more people does not necessarily equal better. So there's a flawed argument right there. And yeah, it's sort of similar to an ad populum, absolutely. But I think it's just, hey, if the Nazis only had more people, they would have been fantastic. I don't see that as a good argument.
Yeah, and weirdly, the number has grown. It's a population increase thing, not a conversion thing. As of 2021, there are 1.378 billion baptized Catholics in the world. Assuming they're all still practicing, which is a big assumption.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know a lot more no longer Catholics than current Catholics. In fact, I can't think of anybody who's a current Catholic that I know. But whatever, we'll just go with that. That does make Catholicism the largest.
Because my family on my brother's side, my brother married into a family who was very Catholic and very supportive of Catholics, but I think that they've sort of drawn away a bit. They're more cultural Catholics now, just because, of the problems they've been having, and that they still won't allow women to be ordained.
Yeah, they're, another 100 years or so, they might get to it. But
yeah.
Like everything else, they have grown more in the last 100 years than in the previous over 1,000 years combined. It's kind of scary, and not just for Catholicism reasons. That's everything growing that fast, and it's, I don't know, like overpopulation is a bit of an issue.
And I mean, they're sort of, and it's interesting that the places where things like the Catholic Church is growing is not in sort of the first world. They're crumbling away in sort of, the first world nations. They're really where they're gaining traction. And I went over this in a room a little while back. They're gaining traction in places where there is less education. So when you examine it, and as soon as a country starts to get better and better education, their religiosity starts to drop, and it's a problem kind of thing. I think that the Catholic Church may not support education that much, even though they certainly have in the past. They may not these days.
So that was in my Discord from Beta.
Okay.
Fixed his hat.
That's quick. That's quick. Yes. Yes. I mean, they love their hats. They really do. I was sort of saying, that the royal family in the UK, and this is in the UK, so this is why there are such sort of prominent UK speakers. Hitchens, of course, being from England, Fry being from England, and Widdecombe being from England. The whole idea that there is a special family that deserves to rule because a guy in a funny hat just put a thing on, like a fancy hat on another person, is just ridiculous. We understand where executive power comes from. We understand that it comes from acceptance for whatever reason from the masses. That's where we understand it comes from. And dictators have learnt to their sorrow that if you can't control the masses, you don't control the country. That is essentially where it comes from, whether that be by authoritarian means or whether that be by democratic means or some kind of spiritual means. power resides in where the people believe it resides. And I think that was a line from Game of Thrones. But that is true for whatever reason. And so this whole farce of man with fancy hat puts another fancy hat on a man and gives him some sort of right to rule. Come on now. We got to grow up as a species, really. You know, that is childish thinking.
I do appreciate fancy hats. I have to say.
Well, yeah, I don't like hats. I don't like hats. I've got a weird shaped head. I hate hats. Hats are, yeah, but that's okay. You know,
that's fair. But no,
okay.
you're absolutely correct. The authority always derives from the consent of the governed. It's the trick of the aristocracy to get people to believe otherwise.
Yep. And John Locke sort of did away with the need for that entire thing with the social contract theory, like the idea that we say, hey, we allow you to make decisions on our behalf. In exchange, you preserve certain rights and allow us to have certain things that you cannot touch, right? So our ability to be free and speak what we say and not be harmed or imprisoned for no reason. You know, there has to be a breaking of the law. That is the social contract. And you know, a lot of the Black Lives Matters, the protests and even the riots, that happened because they broke the social contract. They harmed and killed somebody who did not deserve it, and they breached those rights. And that is the reason. That is what happens when you break that social contract. And many, many people have found out to their sorrow that you cannot break that social contract and just get away with it. And nor should we allow it. But anyway, that's tangents all round. Yeah. I blame the hats. I really do.
The world, out of a population of 6.6 billion, 17.3%. And these are young, these are made up of all categories of people, young and old, women and men, peasant farmers and high-tech professionals, simple citizens, and even heads of states and world leaders. This is the great army that is a great force for good in the world. And whatever they are doing, we consider it as being done largely also as a result of the spirit that guides them. Let's come further to a more concrete area of the kind of things that the Catholic Church does all over the world, the network of initiatives that the Church is engaged in, especially in the area of social welfare and development, which people like me, from where I come from, I'm constantly in touch with what the Church is doing. Independent statistics have shown that the Catholic Church is doing far more than its numbers and its population would probably suggest. The action of the Church is most significant in communities that are reduced to poverty and misery by human neglect and sometimes by hostile environments, whether it be schools, hospitals, clinics, refugee camps, HIV and AIDS, in all these areas. If you go to those places, in those circumstances, and ask them, they will tell you that the Catholic Church is a force for good for them and a force for good for the world. Talking of statistics, I spoke recently with the Director General of UNAIDS, which is the United Nations Agency for HIV and AIDS, and he said that 26% of the health institutions in the world directly involved with the treatment of HIV and AIDS are run by the Catholic Church.
Oh.
And this is an underestimation because I do.
That's rich.
Yeah, they only do it for, you know, pray with us and we'll do stuff.
Well, it's worse than that. The huge endemic status of HIV in Africa is 100% due to the Catholic Church spreading, abstinence-only education, denying birth control, etc. HIV would not have been nearly as severe, and conceivably, considering the advances in birth control, including widespread access to condoms and the drugs that we've come out with, the cocktails and now the semi-immunization thing we could do. It could have been wiped out by now. Easily, but Catholicism single-handedly caused it to become endemic. Like not just
Yes.
an unkillable thing, but like it's permanently with humanity now, and it's literally their fault.
To know that many times what we do are not reported to units, which just shows where we are going. The same thing can be said of schools and clinics. And please note that it is a well-known policy of our church that whenever we are engaged in social welfare work, it is all.
Yeah, and Robin pointed out in the chat, and I wanted to check this before I backed it. The Pope said condoms cause AIDS. Not the current Pope, but it was Pope Benedict, the one before that, said that condoms could make the AIDS crisis worse because they were absolutely against any birth control whatsoever, any contraception at all. So not only did it contribute to sort of overpopulation for people that couldn't afford it and therefore poverty in Africa, they actually contributed to the AIDS crisis in Africa. So let's not forget that.
Yeah, so when he wants to talk about how they should get a gold star for setting up clinics to help treat AIDS, fuck that.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I know for a fact that you can, like, when you have a vasectomy over here, and a lot of the hospitals are Catholic run over here, they will not perform a vasectomy, but they will perform a reversal of a vasectomy, which is ridiculous. Like, it is like you're talking about a religious institution that you're not part of determining what medical treatments people can receive because they are so influential. That is ridiculous. They should have their religion out of stuff like medicine and healthcare and things like that. They've got no business being a part of it. It should be doctors telling us what is good and bad as far as health goes, not a freaking priest. And this is the thing that upsets me, especially with people talking about, trans surgery and gender affirming care. They're sort of talking about it on the internet. And my position is we should be talking to doctors about that. Why should some idiots on the internet, myself included, be deciding what is good for a child and bad for a child medically and psychologically? That's not my purview. I'm not, sort of licensed in any way to make those kind of decisions. We have medical experts for things like that. But these people, they want to listen to priests and pastors and people pearl clutching and things. Why are we listening to these people? Why? They have no education to actually do any of that stuff. Bye, Rodney. You take care, mate. Thanks for dropping in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm joking. I don't know if you would.
Do you think Rodney subscribed? I don't know.
I don't know. I hope so. Thank you, Rodney.
And now I'm prepared to clutch my pearls.
Oh, nice. Yeah, do that. Do that.
Clutching.
Absolutely. Yeah, if they're going to do it, you do it too. But yeah, I'm sorry. I should give you a word about trans issues and who should decide. And it's just why do these priests and pastors have any say on who receives what, or politicians have any say? They should just listen to doctors.
Well, there's a couple of different factors. The first thing is, yeah, absolutely. It's when we do the next episode of transpositions, it's going to be related to one of the news items. But there was a poll that came out last week. Republican voters are sick of the anti-trans bullshit. They very strong 67% of Republican voters in South Carolina said that the government needs to stay the fuck out of from getting in between a doctor and a child and their parents. It's the parents' rights thing. Now, I don't personally agree that that's the way to go because there are abusive parents. There are parents who will go against their child's best interest for religious reasons. But we can agree that the government should not be in that conversation no matter what, let the doctor do the doctoring.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want somebody coming in and sort of, I mean, I have discussions with my doctor about autism and things that I have to have in order to deal with my conditions. Why should somebody in government be telling me, hey, you're not allowed to do that because we don't want that happening? Like, could you imagine if you have, some sort of stomach issue or some kind of, you're suffering from depression and the government steps in and says, hey, no, you're not allowed to receive that treatment because we've decided it's immoral. Like, seriously, how would you feel? How would you feel in that circumstance? You'd be like, why is the government my doctor is telling me, hey, we need to treat this and here's how we go about managing it. And here's how we go about getting you a better life. And the government saying, no, we're going to take that. What kind of world are we living in where the government is doing that?
Yeah, and that's literally what's happening. That's not even a hypothetical.
Yeah.
That's when in the abortion thing, right? There was that that woman in Texas where all the doctors were saying, you need to get this baby out of you or you are going to die. And the government was saying, go die. Once you die, then we'll authorize that this action was medically necessary. But you have to die first.
Yeah. And none of the medically necessary that doctors have said has been accepted by the people sort of reviewing it. None of them. It's ridiculous what they've done, to the point where they're now getting lawsuits because people have had to carry a baby to term and the baby's been stillborn. And the psychological harm it does to the mother, they're now suing the government. But it's not those sort of, self-righteous individuals that are going to be paying. It's going to be the taxpayer paying, because you can't sue directly some asshole Republican who has decided that you're going to have a stillborn because, they've decided that all life is life and you can't abort a baby that they know will not survive to term. So, congratulations, taxpayer, you're going to have to bear the brunt of these lawsuits coming in. And I don't know how a court is going to decide that there is no damage done by, sort of preventing someone from getting an abortion when they have the psychological damage of being forced to have a stillborn child. Like, I can't even, it's hard imagining something more destructive than having to do that. Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And while this may seem tangential or off topic, do recall that on all of these issues, the Catholic Church is siding with the Republicans.
Yeah. Yep.
There. Now I have a better hat than he does.
Nice. That definitely is a better hat. Yes. Look, I'm if you're crowning me, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'm just going to note down. Beta Ray's got a couple of networks. I'm going to note these down, check them out.
Oh, Flashpoint and Victory Network.
Yeah. I've not heard of them, but I will check them out. Look, you don't understand how little I go out and purposely search for right-wing networks to watch. Like, seriously,
it's a trip. So Flashpoint is a show on Victory Network, and it's got those evangelical adjacent guys like Lance Walnut and I forget their other names. It's basically all part of that Kenneth Copeland cult, right? Like, it's a combination of I forget if Copeland owns the network directly or not, but all the pastors and preachers and things that they're in association with are all connected to Kenneth Copeland, either because they went to his Bible college or he's created some kind of financial arrangement with. And these guys are all interconnected. Greg Locke, the crazy guy who beat up the Barbie house and also does a lot of really horrible things, including book burnings and getting people to die by COVID. And he did that flat earth debate with the other pastor. He's part of that group. Bishop Alan Didio, he's involved in there. He goes on their show. Lance Walnut comes to his shows and whatnot. He's the guy who's out there telling people they need to die in order to be saved. Give your life. Actually go kill yourself. Like, all of these crazy evangelical cultists are all tied up in this thing, and the center pin of it
axis
all.
of evil.
Yeah,
It's an
the
axis
center pin is the Victory Network. It's fucking wild.
Right. Okay, I got to check that out then. That is insane. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Without any discrimination, whether you believe or not, irrespective of creed. Therefore, in a world where very often things go according to sectarian lines and polarized, this is surely a great force for good. Mind you, I have not in any way suggested, in all I've said so far, that the Catholics are the best people in the world, far be it. Indeed, it is an integral part of our faith that our church is made up of saints and sinners. We are all struggling towards that perfection which Jesus asks us all to follow. Nor am I denying that the Catholic Church has always and everywhere been done excellent things, even sometimes in high levels. But this, again, only proves that we are in this world. Even the late Pope John Paul II had no difficulty at all in admitting the mistakes that people who claim to be Catholics and working in the name of the church have done in the past.
Okay, but let's be fair. Like, he didn't admit them because he had this sudden rush of, moral fortitude and decided that the public pressure has always been involved into everything the Catholic Church has admitted. Find me one instance of them reversing and saying, hey, this was a mistake that the church did that hadn't been forced by public pressure. One instance where public pressure wasn't what forced them to admit that it was a mistake, usually very, very late.
Centuries after the fact in many cases.
Yeah.
And even apologized. And such gestures of apology is very rare in our world today. We should also be careful how we judge people of other times, because we do not know how those who will come after us will judge us. Let me conclude by drawing your attention to one particular aspect of my faith, which I admire greatly. We are very open to dealing and moving and collaborating with others. And this is showing itself more and more, definitely in the countries where I come from. We reach out to others. We have a whole baggage of doctrinal positions, as well as and policies, which encourages us to look around. Anywhere you see anybody doing good, link hands with them. And I think this is very important for the world of our days. We are talking of the world of today. We need more and more efforts to link hands across all divides so that we can manage to make our planet a better place. A world of justice and peace. Is there still anybody here who still doubts whether the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world? Thank you.
I don't know that he's given any reason why it's a force for good, apart from, we've made mistakes and sort of, there's a lot of people in the Catholic Church. It has a community. I mean, what has he actually said that it has done that has been good?
Yeah, like, you believe in peace. Cool, but you opened your remarks by calling everyone in the room soldiers. And the Catholic people are the greatest army. Like, you can say peace all you want, but you've still got this mindset of conquest and domination. Like, what are you talking about? All these platitudes about peace and justice when you're, living in a fucking castle as part of a colonial empire. Oh my goodness. It rings so hollow, is all I'm saying.
Very much.
Well, Your Grace.
I cut out the sort of, if it jump cuts, I cut out the bit in between kind of thing, because it was just the moderator talking about, just sort of, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, and Zainab, who did something that I almost never have had experience before, paid a compliment to my shirt before we came on tonight. So I was able to return by pointing to hers, which you're feasting your eyes on now, and saying, I once saw Norman St. John Stevas, now Lord Stevas of Fawley, wearing a shirt just like that on the television. And he was asked by his interviewer, gosh, what a lovely shirt, where did you get it? And Sivas said, do you really like it? He said, I call it sort of crushed cardinal. I might add, in the spirit of fraternity, which I'm sure will inform this entire soiree, that the mere existence of Lord Sivas of Forley is testimony to the breadth of the church. Now, I'm sorry, though, to have to begin by disagreeing with His Grace. If you're going to be a serious grown-up person and appear to defend the Catholic Church...
So I just want to point out, he opens with a joke, and this just warms it. Like, you could spend hours doing examining Hitchens and getting stuff from the way that he works an audience. And yes, a lot of it is rhetorical, right? So I think if you had to point to Hitchens, maybe mistakes that he does or try to criticize him, there is a certain amount you could point to say, hey, a lot of the stuff that he does is rhetorical. Like, it is devices in order to the presentation rather than the meat. It's not like he's got no meat. It's just some of the stuff that he does is there to be a device to carry his arguments. But he does it so well, kind of thing. Like, he does it in such a way that it almost sort of gets you on his side whether you like it or not. You know, like, he's just such a remarkable person when speaking. It's not even like he's nice to the audience or nice to the people that believe it, kind of thing. He's just, I don't even know how to describe it. He's just so he's so effective. I don't even know how to describe it. You know what do you know what I mean? It's just, you know, like the joke he made, it was just, you know, the crushed cardinal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a backhand slap at the guy that just spoke for a start. You know, he just gave him a backhander as soon as he walked out there.
Well, yeah, all of Catholicism, really.
Yeah, and you know, sort of not even sort of a just a backhander, not even attacking the person, but just backhanding their institution as he gets out there, which is just hilarious.
Yeah, that's his charm. It's funny, it's witty, but it also makes it very clear what he's here to do.
Yeah, yeah.
In public, in front of an educated and literate audience, you simply have to start by making a great number of heartfelt apologies and requests for contrition and forgiveness. Now, you might ask, you're fully entitled to ask, brothers and sisters, who am I to say that? Well, in the Jubilee Millennium Year of 2000, the Vatican spokesman, Bishop Piero Marini, said, explaining a whole sermon of apology given by His Holiness the Pope, that was supposed to cover the entire history of the Church in its Jubilee year, that, I'll quote Bishop Marini directly, said, given the number of sins we've committed in the course of 20 centuries, reference to them must necessarily be rather summary. Well, I think Bishop Marini had that just about right. I'll have to be summary too, but I think he said just about the least of it. His Holiness on that occasion, it was March the 12th, 2000, if you wish to look it up, begged forgiveness for, among some other things, the Crusades, the Inquisition, the persecution of the Jewish people, injustice towards women, that's half the human race right there, and the forced conversion of indigenous peoples, especially in South America. And that followed a whole series of preceding apologies, or apologies, I would say, of a kind, made by the late Pope John Paul, who, it troubles me not at all to say, was a very impressive and serious human being. It followed no less than 94, count them, public recognitions on his part of appalling crime and error and cruelty and stupidity and offenses to the free intelligence, ranging from, I shall be summary, like Bishop Marini, the African slave trade, apologized for in 1995. The admission that Galileo was right about the relationship between the sun and the earth and other orbs, which came in 1992, one might add. No, I won't.
Okay, so Pope John Paul was the Pope before Benedict, I believe. So Pope John Paul, Benedict, then Francis is the list of kind of thing. The whole point is that this guy, and I'll just look up his times because I'm not sure when he reigned. So it began in 1978, ended in 2005. So this is very recently, you know, as far as history is concerned. And this was sort of through pressure from outside that they just sort of apologize for everything the Catholic Church has done wrong, kind of thing. You know.
Yeah. We're sorry for everything.
Say it's too easy to say better late than never. Here, I said it. To violence and torture, legalized torture. Torture was legalized and institutionalized by the Roman pontiff during the Counter-Reformation. That came in 1995. And for silence during Hitler's final solution, or Shoah, as well as in 1999, coming in just under the Millennium Jubilee wire, an apology for the burning alive in the main square of Prague of the great Czech Protestant Jan Hus. Since that big fiesta of forgiveness that began in, or culminated, I might say, in 2000, fiesta of forgiveness, fiesta of asking for it, the papacy is also asked to be forgiven for the sack of Constantinople and the massacre of Byzantine Christianity in April 1204 as part of the Fourth Crusade, the anathema on all Eastern Orthodox Christians as unbelievers, heretics, and people dwelling outside the health of the church was lifted only in 1964. I call your attention to that. He also expressed sorrow about the murder and forced conversion of Serbian Orthodox Christians in the Balkans during the Second World War. And it doesn't end there. There are smaller but significant, equally significant, avowals of a very bad conscience. These have included regret for the rape and the torture of orphans and other children in church-run schools in almost every country on earth, from Ireland to Australia.
So this is you compare what he's doing with what Onaiyekan. I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to disrespect him. I just don't know how to pronounce that name. Like, he didn't say anything that was good that the Catholic Church is doing, except for some sort of vague spiritual good that it does its members, and say what the members do individually. Hitchens has cut straight to what evils has this institution done, right? What has its position actually been on various topics, and started to list them all. And this is going on and on and on. Like, this is, if Onaiyekan had wanted to, I think he would have been better going, hey, the Catholic Church opposed this regime. The Catholic Church, had this moral stance against this evil. He would have done a lot better, because at least he has something he can point. I mean, I realize it's tough because the Catholic Church has not been on the right side of history for a long time. But he could certainly sort of cherry pick some, you know what I mean? Like, this is turning into a slaughter, because he is just pointing out all of these things that the church has apologized for and therefore have admitted culpability for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They've admitted they did all of these things.
That's sort of the key. Is this is just the stuff they've said they're sorry for, like, not the CSA scandals in every church in every country that are still ongoing today, or the residential schools, or the baby scoop business that they were a big part of. There's a lot that they haven't even apologized for, and even just the stuff they're sorry about, Christopher still has to do a truncated list. Yeah, there's just the list is there's probably more words in the list of the Catholic Church's crimes than in the Bible. And I mean the Catholic Bible, the one with the extra books. Yeah, right. And here's the thing, like, and he's going to go through the most egregious ones, but you're right, the list is not complete. And this is sort of, it's sort of the mentality of the Catholic Church that, all of the wrong things we've done, they're just forgiven by God. We just have to say, hey, that was a mistake, and that's enough. But you're claiming, and keep this in mind, and I want this to be in the forefront of your mind, you're claiming that the Pope and the Catholic Church are God's representatives on earth, right? That they have a direct line to a God who is the moral bringer of morals and the foundation for all morals that we have. And they have apologized for damn near every single stance they've ever taken. Like, it's ludicrous to think that this church is in some way a bringer of morals to the world. Yeah, like, if there is a way to be wrong about something, morally speaking, the Catholic Church has done it on purpose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I mean, mostly it's due to, their stances on certain issues that are harmful to people. They're harmful to people, and they think they're doing God's will. But hasn't that always been the problem, Ems? People that think they're doing God's will that are harmful to those very people.
Yeah,
Because it's
that's
not
been the
about
story through all of human
Yeah.
civilization. Is
'Cause
some clever humans figure out a few things and they go, "Oh, this person must be the special. Let's ask them what else they know about the other thing." This is what Socrates was talking about: is, we can figure out a few things. Stop assuming because I can figure out one or two things that I have the answers to everything. Aristotle, his single biggest point he tried to hammer home most regularly in the academy was never take up anybody's word for anything, even Aristotle's.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what happens. Is people
Yeah.
get a reputation for being slightly wiser than the people around them, and everybody else wants to hand them a crown and have them dictate how to live. And then when they encounter the next tribe over who lives differently, well, since their way is holy now, they have to go to war to see whose god has the bigger dick.
Yep, tribalism at its finest. I mean, that's not the only reason that we've gone to war, but we're looking at these institutions of what helps and what doesn't. What is better for those people? Instead of getting embroiled in a war to see who's got the bigger dick, maybe we could work with these people and trade with them, and we both could do better. Just putting it out there. Could be an idea.
Yeah, every time we've seen it, well, it hasn't always gone well. I'm thinking of Japan around the turn of the 20th century when they saw what was happening to China, what with these sphere of influence zones. All the big Chinese cities were getting colonied off and whatnot. Japan was like, "Well, we don't want to do that. Let's just directly open trade and it assimilate and incorporate technology and make ourselves as strong as these European and European descended powers, and then they'll respect us and everybody will benefit." And it worked fantastically until the 1940s. Details though.
Yeah, details. I'm getting jealous of your hat. I think I've got a hat somewhere around here. I know I've got a tinfoil hat.
Fancy hats.
Fancy hats.
They make a difference.
Yeah. You're undermining my power on the channel, Ember, with your very fancy hat. Your very fancy hat.
And I'm pleased to see that due reconsideration is now being given, and may in fact have been given, to the hellish, I choose the word carefully, doctrine of limbo, St. Augustine's cruel and stupid disposal solution to a non-existent problem, that is to say, the destination of the souls of unbaptized children. Up until now, Catholic parents have been taught that's where their unbaptized children went, a form of torture that's sometimes worse than the physical. Now it seems that this piece of Augustinian sadism is undergoing reconsideration as well. But remember, this is from a church that, on the whole, cannot err.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Just 1 second. I just want to switch this round. Get a bit more thing. I think I see a delay. It might be caused my end, but I'll switch this up and see if it does any better. My apologies. We're back with it. But we were talking about this earlier. So limbo was kind of a semi-solution because the whole point was, they had to say, hey, don't kill your unbaptized children, because they made up a rule that unbaptized children went straight to heaven. So this was the limbo. It was the solution because, they would stay this time in this place where they wouldn't be alive, but they wouldn't be dead. They wouldn't be in heaven. They wouldn't be in hell. So it's kind of this sort of silly solution that there's nothing in the Bible about limbo. Nothing, right? They made it up.
Yeah, it was just a William Lane Craig level Band-Aid over a problem.
Yeah.
There's nothing behind it. They just went, well, it's probably, maybe, I don't know. But they're doing that thing that we're always calling them out for. Like, if you come up with a better idea, a better solution, a more moral outcome than your supposedly perfect God, that kind of shows that your religion has some, fundamental flaws.
Absolutely.
We still await a more direct admission. For example, I give some suggestions of my own while we're at it. I would like them to take back the Concordat made with Adolf Hitler, the first treaty he ever signed, giving the church a monopoly over education in Germany in exchange for the dissolution of the Catholic Centre Party to give the Nazi Party a clear run. I'd apologize for the Lateran Pact with Mussolini, myself, also the first treaty ever signed by that fascist dictator. I would also think I'd want to reconsider the fact that Father Tiso, head of the Nazi puppet state in Slovakia, was a priest in holy orders, that the Croatian fascist puppet state, the Ustaša state of Ante Pavelić, was also operating under full clerical protection and disguise, as was the regime of General Franco and the dictator Antonio Salazar. And I really think I would beg forgiveness for this. I don't think the German church should have asked Hitler's birthday to be celebrated from the pulpit every year until he died. These are very serious matters, and they're not to be laughed off by references to the occasional work of Catholic charities. But I draw your attention not just to the apologies, ladies and gentlemen, but to the evasive and euphemistic form.
Yeah, so boom, he's not like this is the thing. He's done his homework. He knows about the dictators that were celebrated by the Catholic Church. Like a dictator in Slovakia was a Catholic priest. Like, are you serious? How do you stand up to this? How do you come back from this?
Yeah, it's and he hasn't even mentioned the fact that those occasional works of actual charity that they do, well, I mean, I'm sure he'll get to it. I remember him talking about it later on. But the Sisters of Charity in Calcutta weren't actually so charitable.
Yeah.
That they take. Joseph Ratzinger, the current Pope, considered by some, by Catholics, to be the vicar of Christ on earth, says of the Indians who were massacred in the course of conversion in Brazil, after the apology had been made to them, he said, nonetheless, it must be remembered that before we came to convert them, they were silently awaiting the arrival of the church. I don't think that's a very genuine kind of apology to you. In his comment, one of the few he's made on the institutionalization of rape and torture and maltreatment of children in Catholic institutions,
it's like, well, we're going to, make an apology, but for the forced conversion of these Indian people, sure. But we're going to say, hey, but they were actually awaiting for us to do exactly that, brutally force them to convert to our religion.
Yeah, well, that's how they justified it for ages and ages. Like Christopher Columbus, for example. Like, while the Crown of Spain did condemn his actions once they found out about it, they didn't exactly stop him either. not in the way you might think. But also, papal bull after papal bull came down saying, you can't enslave Christians, but anybody who isn't converted yet is fair game. But also, you should try to convert them. And, that's why he and others were nearly canonized, was because they brought the flag of Christianity to the New World. It wasn't the conquest, it wasn't the riches. It was the converts. It was spreading the empire. And holy fuck, that was the most important thing. It didn't matter how many people died as long as you made new Catholics.
Yep, and saved them. And keep in mind that this was told to the people by the church as being in their best interests. So you can hold the people doing it responsible, but you cannot avoid the fact that they were doing the will of the church, and they believed that the church was inspired by God. They believed that this was in the people's best interest, because that's what the church said. There has to be an accounting for that the institution that tells you this. It's like, it's like when you have like the invasion of Iraq, okay, and over 1 million Iraqis died. And I've got a lot to say about that. America sort of telling Netanyahu that there's too many civilian casualties is a bit rich when, so many civilians died in Iraq. But that's a tangent. I want to get into that at some point, but not now. But can you really hold the people of America responsible when they were told that there was weapons of mass destruction aimed at America and waiting to be used against America, and that he'd gassed his, all of this horrible stuff, that he had these stockpiles of biological weapons and chemical weapons and things like this. Can you blame them for the actions that happened, even the soldiers themselves? And yes, in a way, everybody's sort of responsible for what happens in their country to a certain degree. Not that they're guilty, that they're responsible, but an accounting has to be done for the government to say, hey, you were the people that propagated that this was the right thing to do and convinced people that's the right thing to do. I think the Catholic Church is the same. An accounting has to be done that, yes, people are responsible, but the government and the Vatican is guilty of actually doing that, of causing it to happen.
And when you talk to regular Catholics, like regular lay people who happen to be Catholics, and you point out all these horrible things and, morality and will of God and whatnot, they're quick to disavow a lot of it. They're like, oh, that was in the past, but the church today is different. They've apologized for this and that. But there's so many things they're doing still today that are also horrible. Like, come the fuck on. It's so weird, right? Like, we look at neo-Nazis, the skinheads and the Proud Boys and all of those guys, and we go, at what point did you hear the name Nazi and think, that's what I want to be when I grow up? Like, people shun that as a concept because of the horrible things the Nazis did. What the Nazis did is peanuts compared to what the Catholic Church has done over a millennia and centuries besides. And yet, people don't look at the Catholic Church the same way they think about the Nazis. They don't go, oh, they did one horrible, repulsive thing over, the span of a decade or so. I think it's like that old saying that at a certain point, a person has done so much evil, they stop being a mass murderer and become a legend.
Yeah,
and
Trump
just
brings
can't
to mind,
conceptualize it.
actually.
Yeah.
Like, Trump does so much wrong that it becomes hard to point out the individual things that he's done wrong. It's just this this whole it's this whole sort of systematic violation of our norms and our laws that it's just par for the course. And like, you'll speak to somebody and even, what has he actually done wrong? It's just everything. It's hard to point out one thing or another because there is so much. But that's what I appreciate about Hitchens. He's pointing out those individual instances of them being wrong. And that's what we've got to do with people like Trump, like, point out that, hey, this is what he's done and that's what he's done and all of these things. I've got a lot to say about that, but I'm tangenting again. I'm sorry. I'm in a tangent mood. When am I not, actually? Now
It's tangent time.
It's tangent time.
Said it's a very severe crisis, which involves us, he said, in the following: in the need for applying to these victims the most loving pastoral care. Well, I'm sorry, they've already had that. And to say that this is the responsibility laid upon you by the horrific admission that you've already had to make is not accepting responsibility in any adult sense. When I say child abuse was institutional, how dare I say so? How can I prove it? How can I prove such a thing? Well, I'll ask His Grace, and I'll ask Anne Widdecombe. Where is Cardinal Bernard Law now? Where is he? Where is the Cardinal Archbishop of Boston, whose resignation was indignantly demanded, finally, by 50 members of the church and by the whole laity of Massachusetts, who also demanded his prosecution for the promotion and protection and covering up and apology for and defense of people whose crimes against children are too revolting to specify. And he's not.
And I love the way that he uses that language, too revolting to specify. Like, he is. Everybody knows what he's talking about. Everybody knows what, and the fact that everybody knows what he's talking about is such a indictment of the Catholic Church. These crimes are too revolting to specify. We all know what he's talking about. And the fact that we all know what he's talking about should be the nail in the coffin. Like, what other organization could have that amount of crimes too revolting to specify and still be in operation today?
freaking wild. And the fact that there's an example right there in town, it's also, I'm slightly distracted and amused by the fact that Christopher keeps putting his glasses on and then taking them off dramatically, only to put them right back on again.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's in his element. Like, he is just so comfortable at this stage. I hope one day I am half a good as debater as Christopher Hitchens. Like, seriously.
Yeah, because it's not just the points, it's not just the homework, it's the style, it's the performance. The man he's a natural, not even actor, because he's legit when he does it. He's not pretending. He's just being himself. He's just amping it up to 12 or 13 on the dial.
And it's that he's genuine. He is angry about this stuff, and rightfully so. It is the fact that he genuinely believes what he is saying, and that he is just like putting this out there, but jamming it home with the example. Like, the structure of his the points are there. If you say, oh, he's all rhetoric, absolutely not. His points are definitely in there. Logically, we have to look at all of the wrongs they've done. But wow, he just jams them home one after another, then backs them up, then reinforces them. And you're right, the performance is there, but it's not all performance. It's not, one of those people that gets up and says, oh, all this talking and then he doesn't have a point. Christopher has a point. It's just it's so good.
Jurisdiction of Massachusetts now, as perhaps you know. He's the Supreme Vicar of the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome, personally appointed by the Pope to that, as well as many other important sinecures. And in 2005, this man, a fugitive from justice and from complicity in the filthiest crime that it's possible for a human being to imagine, was one of those voting in conclave to decide who the next Vicar of Christ on earth will be. I don't know. I think I'd like to hear a bit more shame about this. I think I'd like to see a bit more confrontation with the reality of the business. Now, this is a serious question, as I've said, and Widdecombe very often, rightly, in my opinion, attacks the climate of moral relativism and of anything goes that can very well be the handmaiden of postmodernist hedonistic culture. I very often am glad that she points these things out. But the rape and torture of children is not something to be relativized. It's not something to be excused as a few bad priests. It's certainly not to be excused by the hideously false claim made by some Catholic conservatives that this wouldn't have happened if queers hadn't been allowed into the church. Sorry to say that queerdom in the church is an old story too. And it's worse, it's much worse than pornography, and it's much worse than bad language on TV.
Yeah, so he's talking about what they get outraged about, like, queerishness in the church, they get outraged about. Where's the outrage about this? Where is the outrage? Where is the condemnation? Where is the moral sanctimoniousness of children being abused and then it being covered up by the church itself? Oh no, that isn't something to get morally outraged, but porn we have to get morally outraged about.
It's all distractions, smoke screens. Right. Don't look at the actual problem. Let's look at the scapegoat thing. And the fucked up thing is that so much of what is legitimately hurt in people, the religious trauma of various kinds, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, so much damage. Even the people who made it out relatively unscathed still have all that trauma from fear of hell and a sense of guilt that they can just never shake because it was drummed into their heads over the course of their whole lives. And that in turn leads to doing other problems, other ills. Almost all of these child abusers were raised in the church and suffered at the hands of another person, which broke their sense of morality, which is why they're able to do these things to other children. It's all a perpetuating cycle. It's what the church is preaching about original sin. The original sin comes from the church itself, and it contaminates all of its members. All of them.
Yeah. And the idea that you're flawed and evil and Catholic guilt is absolutely a thing. You talk to a Catholic or an ex-Catholic and their guilt over simple things is so pronounced, and so it's kind of upsetting to me when I talk to a Catholic and they sort of said, "Oh, you know, I thought about somebody in a bad way. I'm a bad person." It is heartbreaking to go, what you found somebody you're sexually attracted to sexually attractive, and that's a cause for you being the most awful person in the world. It's heartbreaking. It really is to see somebody so guilty over something so trivial, like so trivial. Big freaking deal. It's not like they even act on it or they really police their own thoughts. I can't imagine what you have to do, not to be thought police, but get people to be their own thought police. Can you imagine? It's an affront to rationality. It's an affront to humanity in general. Tricking people into being their own thought police is horrible.
Yeah, and while we're touching on such a heavy subject, if you or someone you know needs help recovering from religion, that's what recoveringfromreligion.org is literally for. Secular Therapy Project, which is part of what they do. It's there to help people. They specialize in dealing with religious trauma, but they're there for everybody.
And you don't have to sort of go through it alone. It's not like you don't have to see it as a spiritual thing kind of thing. Like there's if you go to Recovering from Religion, it has a number of numbers in there. I might just link it in the chat, but you can be happy and a good person without religion. You don't need religion for that. You don't need a God for that. I'm pretty happy. I'm content in my life. I know a lot of atheists that are content in their lives. You don't need a God for that. You can have and I consider myself to be a pretty moral person, or at least I try to be moral. I don't think you need a God for that either. Treating people well isn't the purview of churches. And I think that we're seeing that. It's not, the legacy of the Catholic Church will not be, well, they treated people really well. That is not going to be its legacy. And it's not going to be the evangelicals' legacy either. We're going to look back at the the various churches, and go, wow, they were horrific in what they said. And I think the smarter ones are just sort of folding to what public opinion is, because they know that they can't stand on this pulpit and be evil. But,
yeah, it's an evolutionary process.
Cries out.
Yeah.
For punishment. It's the thing that if we were accused of on this side of the house, we would die rather than admit. And if we were guilty of it, we'd kill ourselves. And it's the one thing the church has decided to excuse itself for under this papacy. The same euphemism comes in the term "some Christians" that is used in all the apologies about the Crusades, the Inquisition.
Oh, I love that shot. Hold it. Did I miss it?
Be excused as a few bad priests. It's certainly not to be excused by the hideously false.
Sorry, I messed up.
A fugitive from justice and from complicity in the filthiest crime, relativism, and if anything goes that can.
All right, I'm going to stop now because I'm just making things worse.
Was one of those voting in conclave to decide who the next vicar of Christ on earth will be? I don't know. I think I'd like to hear a bit more shame about this. I think I'd like to see a bit more confrontation with the reality of the business. Now, this is a serious question, as I've said, and Widdecombe very often, rightly, in my opinion, attacks the climate of moral relativism and if anything goes that can very well be the handmaiden of postmodernist hedonistic culture. I very often am glad that she points these things out. But the rape and torture of children is not something to be relativized. It's not something to be excused as a few bad priests. It's certainly not to be excused by the hideously false claim made by some Catholic conservatives that this wouldn't have happened if queers hadn't been allowed into the church. Sorry to say that queerdom in the church is an old story too. And it's worse, it's much worse than pornography, and it's much worse than bad language on TV. And it's the crime that cries out for punishment. It's the thing that if we were accused of on this side of the house, we would superiority. It has difficulty catching up to what ordinary people regard as common moral and ethical sense. And it still can't make itself apologize properly. And I'll tell you why. Because, and I'll quote again from the encyclicals, it is said of the Crusades, of the complicity with the Holocaust, of the political and diplomatic alliance with fascism, of all of these things, it is said, well, violence was committed, but I'll stress this, I'll underline it, I'll quote directly, in the service of the truth. So how is an apology possible? How is any understanding or undertaking or firm purpose of amendment to be allowed when the original sin, so to say, the radix malorum, the fons et origo, the problem in the first place, is the belief on the part of this church that it does possess a truth that we don't have, and it does have a God-given right, a warrant, a mandate of heaven to tell other people what to do, not just in their public, but in their private lives.
And that's a good point. Like, what kind of apology is, well, we're sorry we did it, but it was what we were doing the right thing anyway, because it can't admit, and I think I pointed this out earlier, it can't admit that the Pope was wrong, because the Pope is the mouthpiece of God on this earth. So it cannot admit that. So you're basically saying, well, the Pope wasn't wrong, but we shouldn't have done what the Pope said. How was that even a thing?
Oh yeah, there's so many contradictions. It was one of the things that eventually led to the Protestants breaking away, because there were popes would declare one thing and they'd be right and infallible, and the very next pope after them would declare the opposite. They'd say, no, we're not doing that anymore. Let's do this instead. And people were like, but he just said it was infallible. Right, but never mind what we said. What we're saying now, that's what's infallible. And it was fucking absurd. And also, related, since we backtracked, it reminded me of another thing. This claim about, it's just a few bad priests. Well, we looked up the statistics some time ago. I haven't refreshed the statistics, but these data only comes out every couple of years anyway. 56% of priests have at least one pending allegation. Not the stuff that's already been resolved and people sentenced to prison or what have you. Pending allegation, current case involving CSA. 56%.
So I want to tell you about an atrocity that happened in Australia, an absolute reviled and terrible thing that happened. I'm not going to get into specifics, so don't worry about it, but it was to do with somebody called Cardinal Pell. And Cardinal Pell was a very famous in Australia priest for the Catholic Church, went on a number of talk shows, did all this kind of stuff. And he was, he covered up for another priest who was found guilty of the horrendous crime of SA of a child. And he had allegations against him. He went to the Vatican and became the accountant for the Pope, basically, after all of this has happened. He was the Pope's accountant. He was very good at finance, and he basically was the guy pulling all the strings as far as money. Due to public pressure, he was sent back to face his charges under extreme public pressure from Australia. He came back. Pell was found guilty by a jury of his peers of SA of a child. Found guilty. Now he took it to the I believe the High Court of Australia, and then the Supreme. Well, the High Court is the very, very highest court. The Supreme Court is one below that. So he took it to the very highest court, and they basically overturned it. A panel of judges overturned it, which is an atrocity. That is horrendous that this man gets special treatment. Horrendous. That the High Court would overturn a man being found guilty by a jury of his peers, especially based upon the flimsy reasons they said. There is special treatment for these criminals in our society, and it should not be there. If he is found guilty, unless some kind of mistrial occurred, which there wasn't, If he gets found guilty by a jury of his peers, he should be in frigging prison. That's where he should be. But no, he went back to be the Pope's accountant, and the Pope had no problem with this whatsoever. And that's Pope Francis. That is the current Pope. His name was George Pell. Yeah, I believe he died in 2023, and the world is a better place for it, quite frankly. I'm sorry, I usually don't speak ill of the dead, but when you have been found guilty and it goes to the High Court and the High Court decides, so judges who are Catholic decide that, hey, a Catholic priest couldn't have done this, that is ridiculous. And his acquittal is a absolute shame and a farce, in my opinion. He should have been in the thing. Yeah, absolutely. And Pandora is right. And he had the Prime Minister singing his praises. Not the current Prime Minister, the Prime Minister before him, which was Scott Morrison, who was a complete idiot. That still makes me angry. Who else? Like, if I got convicted by a jury of my peers, there's no way the High Court would intercede and find, But as Christopher Hitchens said, if you're accused of that kind of crime over here and found guilty, if I had done that, I wouldn't want to live, quite frankly. How do you live with the knowledge that you've done such a horrible thing to a young child under your care? Sort of as a altar boy under your care and that you're mentoring. Okay.
Yeah, and sadly, or more infuriatingly, that's not unique by any stretch of the imagination. As Robin pointed out, the Cardinal of Boston was moving priests around to protect them from justice. And the current Cardinal of New Orleans, he's been controversial for a lot of reasons, but pertaining to this particular discussion, there's a bishop who was under his charge when he was bishop of the Austin area in Texas. Now he's Cardinal of New Orleans, but this guy got busted for a lot of CSA and went to prison. And this cardinal, who isn't even in the same area anymore, he's in New Orleans and this other dude's back in Texas, he's been using diocese funds. He's been selling off church property to try to pay for appeals for this dude who has hurt many, many children. Like, he's trying to use the power of the church to protect the pedophile instead of helping the victims. The fuck?
It's insane. And it's hard to sort of think about this and not get very, very frustrated with the way that the world is. I think we need to shake off that bad feeling, because there's only so much we can do. We can talk about it and sort of rail against it and sort of make people aware of it. But there's not a lot we can do about it.
Empires have long half-lives.
Well, Spooky's saying that Dillahunty debated Cardinal Pell when it was over there. Not to my knowledge. I would love to know if he did. I would love to see it if he did. I don't know if he did. I know that he appeared with Dawkins on a panel, but I don't think he debated him. He might have debated Barker, I'm seeing here, which maybe Pell versus Barker should be something we should review, because I love Dan Barker. He is amazing. So maybe that is something we should do, but not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, it looks like it's Dawkins versus Cardinal Pell.
Well, that was, they both appeared on. We had a show called Q&A, basically. It's more just a sort of talk show kind of thing. It's not an actual debate thing. It's more just different people with different opinions appear, and the host sort of asks questions. There's people, send in questions for the people based upon a thing. It was actually a very, very good show when the original host did it. I haven't watched it for a while though. I think that the hosts haven't been living up to how good it used to be. But it used to be very good.
And until that is changed, till that fantastic and sinister and non-founded claim is changed, these crimes will go on repeating themselves, being partially denied, partially admitted when it's too late to do anything else, and covered up. Behind all these crimes and miseries is the denial of what we on this side of the house affirm, which is that the only little candle of hope that our species does possess, our poor, bare, forked, primate, mammalian species, of whom you have two such splendid examples on this side of the house and not bad on the other tonight, is the unfettered intelligence, the method of free inquiry in philosophy and in science, and the refusal to admit that any one person can tell you not to do that. It's the one thing I might say I think is, if not sacrosanct.
Yeah, I believe Sagan said that science is like a candle in the darkness. Like, it is the only thing that has managed to get us out of our lowly origins and into some semblance of making our way through this universe. It is the only thing holding back chaos, is this methodology where we can tell what is real and what isn't. And it's not like we worship it, but it is the only thing that has been proven to be successful in actually giving us how everything works.
Yeah, people want to talk about what sets humans apart from the rest of the animals. Why there's even a debate as to whether we count as animals with the other animals. These sorts, and they list all sorts of things. Language, which isn't unique to humans. Tool use, which isn't unique to humans. There is nothing humans do that we're the only ones who do it, except for two things: religion and science.
Well, that may not necessarily be true. They've observed chimpanzees putting rocks within a specific tree for no apparent reason, and they think that might be the fundamentals of religion, this ritualistic putting a rock in a tree. There doesn't seem to be any point to it other than every single one does it. So we may have observed that in chimpanzees as well. So it may just be science that is the only thing that we have unique.
Is, shall we say, essential. And the church has always stood and still stands against it. Now, in the little time remaining to me, I'll just propose a few more apologies that we might hope to hear in the immediate future. Because there'll come a time when the church will issue apologies and explanations and half-baked appeals for forgiveness for things it's still doing.
You want to bet they're Catholics?
Yeah, they're on the Catholic side of the room.
That is true. He is slaughtering them. I wanted to get this thing because they took a shot of the front rank when he was talking about these things, and this woman, this nun, actually had her head bowed, like she was ashamed. It was a very, very powerful image. It's sort of like, I think that a lot of Catholics, when you bring that up, they will feel very, very trepidatious in sort of defending their church, and they may make some excuses, but it's one of those things where he is hitting them right in with a kidney punch. Basically, that hurts because and I think that rocked a lot of people's faith. How do you? It's that cognitive distance. How is the Holy See the correct and the truthful representative of God, and cover up that kids have been essayed by their priests? How do you reconcile those two ideas?
Yeah, like I just don't get it. Like,
if
I were a priest, if I'd gone to Catholic priest school, the word escapes me at the moment.
Seminary.
Yeah, that's it. And if I saw even one child who'd been hurt by these supposedly holy men, just one, I wouldn't be able to be a member of that organization anymore. I feel like it doesn't matter the history, the tradition, the supposed rightness, whatever. Like, maybe you could keep the religion, but being a member of the organization, like, no. this is beyond the pale. It is absolutely unacceptable, and you cannot consider yourself to be a moral person or to have any kind of grasp on absolute morality when you see that level of harm, and to see it done with impunity is unforgivable.
And then instead of the church denigrating those individuals, they will move them around so they can do it to others. You could make, or you could attempt to make the argument. I don't think you'd succeed that this is just a few bad apples, which, like you said, 60-something% having allegations is not that is, and there is something about that saying I want to point out, but you couldn't make that argument except for that the actual people in charge covered it up. At that point, it is not just, this priest is bad, that priest is bad. That is a systemic thing. That is a system which tries to cover up anything these priests do wrong because it hurts the church's control over power. It hurts their authority because their authority is based upon this supposed moral fortitude, this moral superiority over people. So when they do something that everybody knows is so immoral, they cover it up because it harms their authority. And so then you've got a systemic corruption. And that is why the institution should not exist anymore. It shouldn't exist. Like I said, name one other institution that could do something on that scale, not only harm that many people, but cover it up as well and still be in operation. If the Boy Scouts did that, they'd be closed down. If any of the atheist organization did that, they would be closed down. But because it's a religion, the Catholic Church get to apologize and then keep on doing exactly what they've been doing for the last hundreds of years.
Or not even apologize.
Or not even apologized. Yeah, no, Pandora, I was about to get to that. Yeah, as it's often pointed out that the actual saying is a few bad apples spoil the bunch, right? It's not a few bad apples means the rest of them don't have to account for anything. That's not how it's a few bad apples spoil the entire thing. That is the actual saying. So people use that badly. Look, that kind of thing happened in the Boy Scouts. I don't know if they covered it up. If they did, they shouldn't be around. They should be closed down. Whatever institution is covering up crimes of that level should be prosecuted and not allowed to operate. I don't mind if another organization starts up to replace it, but that one should be closed and all its leaders basically cannot work in that area anymore.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but as I understand it, what happened with the Boy Scouts is they discovered that there were a number of scoutmasters and other leaders who had signed up specifically to be close to young children. But once they discovered it, they started purging people. Like they didn't. Some individuals who were also into it also covered it up. But once once it started to come to light, people heads rolled basically, and it's not forgivable because people trusted this organization with their children and they failed to protect those children.
Absolutely.
But there was some accountability. They didn't just sweep it under the rug and pretend everything was fine either.
Which is what the Catholic Church didn't even do that. They not only did that, they were complicit in moving the priests around so they had other opportunities to perform those crimes. Sweeping it under the rug would have been better than what they did, which was to facilitate those crimes being committed by moving them to places where people had no idea. So what they did was when people started to know that their priest was corrupt and evil and capable of such audacious acts, they would move them across the country to a place where nobody knew. Outrageous.
Yeah, and kamikaze, they're fundamentally the Scouts. They've been getting more secular over the years, but traditionally they're very closely associated with churches. It seems to be they're one of the few organizations that can
Christianity in
work
general,
with both
yeah,
the
yeah.
Protestants and the Catholics.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Well-
groups, it's one or the other. But
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of started by Baden-Powell, and I believe it was to do with wartime, but there was such a religious overtone because Baden-Powell was so religious kind of thing. But yeah,
it's one of the fundamental things in the oath. It's been a long time, so I can't remember the oath, but there's quite a bit about being righteous and faithful and whatnot in there.
The readmission as a bishop of Roger Williamson, a member of Marcel Lefebvre's fanatical, hysterical breakaway sect, so-called Society of St. Pius X. Roger Williamson, found hiding in a reactionary, quasi-fascistic establishment in Argentina, has long been a believer that, I'll put this shortly, that the Holocaust did not occur, but the Jews did kill Christ. In other words, genocide no, deicide yes. He was quite rightly excommunicated some years ago, along with several other members of his ratbag organization. But Joseph Ratzinger's invited him back into the communion because to him, having this man, this liar, this fraud, this racist in the church is more important because it's church unity than the things that he said and done and continues to stand for. Is this not a crying scandal? I think that there will be an apology for what happened in Rwanda.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go. And this is just like, this is what I don't know why these two accepted a debate again. Like, if they thought that Christopher Hitchens was going to come out and say, hey, the church, I don't like it, it makes me feel bad, they were gravely mistaken. Gravely mistaken. I don't know, I don't know the wisdom of accepting this debate. I don't know how any Catholic can defend the Catholic Church. I just don't know how it's possible.
Most Catholic country in Africa, one of the most Catholic countries in the world, where priests and nuns and bishops are on trial for inciting from their pulpits and on the church's radio stations and newspapers the massacre of their brothers and sisters. And the papacy was silent on this appalling occasion, and everyone in Rwanda knows it. And there hasn't yet been a properly written apology for that disgrace. Staying in Africa, I think it will one day be admitted with shame that it might have been in error to say that AIDS is bad as a disease, very bad, but not quite as bad as condoms are bad, or not as immoral in the same way. I say it in the presence of His grace, and I say it to His face. The preachings of His church are responsible for the death and suffering and misery of millions of His brother and sister Africans, and He should apologize for it. He should show some shame.
And I think that Christianity and evangelical organizations have to also they have to accept and apologize for being responsible for the witch hunting in Africa as well. They sent their firebrand preachers over there. They preached, don't accept witches, and you see the result. It's horrendous. But the AIDS epidemic, holy crap.
Oh, and the list of shit they've done goes on and on and on. Nigeria, for example, where the good archbishop is from, there's every year the Muslim militias sweep into the southern Christian part of the country and murder Christians wantonly, and the military does nothing about it because they're largely Muslim.
Yeah.
But it didn't used to be that way. It's only part, but a part of the reason that became a yearly tradition to attack the Christians on their own holiday is because the Catholics went on a witch hunt against the Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
The Muslims, now, Islam has never had a problem with making wars, but one of its central tenets is about community and about secularism, if you can believe it. Certain interpretations. Of course, there are always going to be war leaders, and Islam is by no means the religion of peace it's made out to be. But it's part of the the central elements of the Quran, to live with your fellow countrymen, even if they aren't part of the community, lead by example and be friendly, and so on and so on and so on. And then you've got the Catholics saying, well, you're heathens, we're going to kill you and take your land, and the Muslims are going to fight back. And that's,
Yeah.
I'm painting the picture badly, but the Catholics are not innocent in this.
Yeah.
Fourth, for condemning my friend Stephen Fry for his nature. For saying you couldn't be a member of our church. You're born in sin.
I love Stephen Fry. He is a lovely, lovely man and did not deserve what all the churches and priests and everything said about him. How dare they attack Stephen Fry? I've never seen him harsh with anybody, kind of thing. How dare they? It makes me really sad. How dare they attack you, Ember? You're not fucking hurting anybody. You're just trying to be yourself. How fucking dare they? And one day people will probably be going, "Oh, we didn't really attack the trans community." Fuck you. You absolutely did.
Yeah, it's their faces got in the way of our fists.
Yeah, and Boober's got a point. Still angry about Alan Turing. Yeah, the entire computer community is still angry about Alan Turing. Still angry about Alan Turing, and will be so. I mean, the British government only recently apologized to Alan Turing for chemically castrating him and probably leading to his death. So I imagine how much richer our computer technology would have been if we weren't living back in the fucking dark ages. Come on.
And that's
yeah,
it's infuriating for multiple reasons. Like, how much further along would all of our technology be if Turing and others like him were allowed to contribute? And that leads to a much larger question, that this medieval bullshit ideology that people keep buying into for some unfathomable reason, how much of it is holding other people like Turing and, for other reasons? How many geniuses are being denied the opportunity to serve all of humanity with these tremendous blessings? We're fucking ourselves over because of bullshit.
Yeah. Because you think God doesn't like something, we've got to deny ourselves and denigrate and treat people horribly who may in fact hold the key to our survival. They may in fact have something that makes all our lives richer, but because your imaginary friend doesn't like what they do in private, you've got to rob us of that person. It's time to grow up. Unless you can get your friend to come forward and say, yes, I am an authority and here's why I dislike it, then no one should care what your friend has to say about it. But you can't produce your friend. You can just say, hey, they're the most powerful friend anybody's ever had and I love them. I don't care. You don't get to make somebody suffer because your imaginary friend tells you that they're wrong. Tough shit. When you can produce your friend, we'll listen to him. Yeah, produce your friend and we'll start listening. But you can't or won't, one of the two. And until that happens, tough shit. You don't get to tell people that they're not valued, they're not a part of our society, that they're not useful, that they're not valued in the slightest. Like, no, you don't get to do that. It's time we actually started being adults and saying, okay, well, we're going to listen to people that actually say something to us and not to you saying that your friend told you something.
There's so many trans people. It has been mentioned. It seems like the last weekend, Trans Day of Visibility, everybody had a quote from a different famous trans person from history, and many of them from many, many different people all boiled down to when someone says, my God says you are an abomination, they would turn around and say, I'm real and your God doesn't exist. It happens so often. And that's what we see, not just with trans people, but with everybody in the whole LGBT, with minority groups in every society. Here in the United States, it's black people, it's Mexicans, it's other immigrants. But in other parts of the world, it's this tribe versus this other tribe. It's always different groups, but it's the same fucking rhetoric. And it's always justified by the invisible friend that you've never met her, she goes to a different high school kind of thing. It's people telling real people who are right in front of them that they're not valid because a figment of their imagination says so.
And that figment of their imagination has more of a right to an opinion than the person in front of them. Ridiculous.
Exactly. We broke the audio.
We broke the audio?
Yeah, I wasn't hearing Hitchens just then. Or now.
Are you still hearing him?
Nah.
Oh, crap. All right. 2632. If you can remember this. Wow, we haven't even been through that much of it, quite frankly. Let me get a new window.
We have...
StreamYard has issues. It always has frigging issues. I don't understand it. I get very upset by it.
Yeah, it's been the frequent outrage, I think, on this. Yeah, I mean, usually we don't go through these awfully fast because we both often have a lot to say. But
oh yeah,
this one there's been a lot to say.
2630. That's close enough. Send.
Da-da-da. Nope, nothing.
Nothing? Okay. I know how I can get some sound working. It might be...
God doesn't want us to do the rest of this.
Yeah. The Vatican has decided. The Holy See has decided that we are not going to denigrate their institution anymore.
When I last checked, absolutely boring.
Are you hearing it?
That? Yeah.
Okay.
It's quiet, but it was there.
Okay, give me 1 sec, and I might have to boost the volume, which I'm not sure I can do. Actually, now that I come to think about it, give me 1 sec.
I need to get a volume booster for my audiobooks. And also, anybody out there who's making videos, it's random, but it's relevant to the moment. Make sure you make your videos loud. Like, don't be afraid to turn the volume up. People who are listening can always turn their volume down so that it's comfortable for their ears in the listening conditions they're in. But if you're too soft, we hit our maximum volume and we can't turn you up anymore. So always don't don't peak your audio. Don't spike it. But make it loud because people can turn shit down.
Yeah. I have a bit of trouble deciding, but I usually err on the soft side, and my program
girls.
usually, wow, that is way loud. That is so loud. Holy crap.
It's his nature.
Wow, why is that so freaking loud? Hold it. Give me 1 sec. I think I mucked up here.
have much boost. Yeah, kamikaze. That's a good point too. Make sure. And I fall victim to this one from time to time. That your voice and your video are the same level. Sometimes I'm much louder than the video. Sometimes the video is much louder than me. If it's pre-recorded, with a stream, you can't do that much because so much of it goes through StreamYard's moderating. But if it's pre-recorded, always take a second to run it through an audio editor, Adobe Audition, or something else, and just have it level the volumes, the speaking. Like, not just normalize it, but equalize the volume. Fuck, I cannot English tonight. Equalize the
Actually, he is like other girls.
voice volume. There we go.
Might be a bit pedantic, but
In that he's, when I last checked, absolutely boy mad.
is that a
He's
good
not being
volume?
condemned for what he does, he's being condemned for what he is. You're
It's a
child
little quiet, but it's hearable.
Okay, I'll just boost it a little bit.
of God. Oh, no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join our church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman. It's obscene. And it comes from a clutch of hysterical, sinister virgins who've already betrayed their charge in the children of their own church.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really, Robin? I softened that once already. You should have told me. I can soften it some more. That's not a problem. I can soften that up. That's okay.
For shame, for shame. And finally, under this Pope, as if it wasn't bad enough to try and restore the Latin Mass to gratify the mad fascistic followers of Archbishop Lefebvre, but to begin again to offer remission of sin, as Bishop Ratzinger, the Pope, I'll call him the Pope for heaven's sake, wants to do. If you come to a Catholic youth festival in Sydney, Australia, where I just was, you'll get a certain remission from purgatory or hell. It may be temporary. If you come a lot and you give a lot, you'll get possibly permanent remission from the eternal punishment that they don't know any more about than you and I do. This is the sale of indulgences blatantly, openly. It's the same temptation that was offered to those who set off on that fourth crusade that's just been apologized for and killed all the Jews of Europe on their way, sacked Byzantine Christianity when they got to Constantinople, and then went on to massacre the Arabs and Muslims. They were offered paradise if they died committing these terrible crimes against humanity. But
yeah, and that is one of the things that they have apologized for is remission of sins. Like the lords and kings could pay the Catholic Church in order to have their sins removed. So instead of condemning them, they could pay and the church would absolve them of their sins. It was basically a paid forgiveness by society of whatever evils they thrust upon the peasantry. You know, you had taken your army out and killed a whole load of peasants because they wouldn't pay your taxes, or the church disapproves, but don't worry, all you've got to do is use, you know, part of that blood money that you've extorted off your poor workers to give to the church, and you're forgiven for all of it. The priests will sing your praises in the church because you've been absolved by the church. Horrendous.
We'll name a wing after you.
Yeah. And they will start, and they've started up again. You know, you come and you donate and you will be forgiven for all these things that you've done. It's unconsciously, like, it is so bad. And, you know, worse still are the evangelicals with their prosperity gospel. That is basically, not only are you forgiven for your sins if you contribute to them, but if you exploit people and make money, you are chosen by God. Your making of money and your exploiting of people isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. And whatever sins that you've got, in doing so, all you've got to do is just give money to the church and you're automatically forgiven. The prosperity gospel is so evil. you know, and I might add, the major prosperity gospel in Australia, which is Hillsong, the guy who founded it was found guilty of child SA. So it's not just the Catholic Church that has these problems.
Mm-hmm.
And the current leader of it covered it up. And not enough is being talked about this. Like the whole, you know, oh, well, we apologize. It was the founder of the frigging church. How do you have a church continue when the founder is a criminal like that? Like, it's unconscionable.
Well, I mean, so on the first point, the not just the Catholics thing, when I did news on my Sunday show, there were, I did my science news, I did trans stuff, I did other topics and so forth, but there was always a segment where I'd cover the various pastors and preachers, some of them anyway, who went to prison that week or were arrested that week, just that week, for CSA of some form or another in church schools, in straight up churches, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And there were usually half a dozen of them or more. And they were almost always Protestants. On the second point, the fraud person, horrible criminal person being a founder of a religion, Joseph Smith comes to mind. Like a big, not the only reason, but a big part of the reason he pushed the foundation of Mormonism so hard was so he could with a bunch of underage girls, lots of them. And he was a criminal. He started an actual war, and he was sentenced to be executed twice before the mob finally caught up to him and shot him in the face.
Yes.
Like, big criminal.
Mm-hmm.
His church is still going, though. As the side chat noted earlier, richer than the Catholics even.
Yes. And, you know, he actually was convicted of destroying a printing press. It's because that printing press had done stories unfavorable to the Church of Latter-day Saints. So he destroyed the press's ability to print stories about him by destroying the press. Like, there is no more totalitarian act you can have as a leader of destroying a press because it speaks ill of you. And this is the person who is their venerable saint that is perfect and, you know, started the church. Like, this is a horrific man who was chased out of multiple states.
Yep.
Yeah, so Caden, I just, you know, I get that you want to talk about sort of repentance and people in the LDS getting repentance, but if you bring it up, like sort of the moral questions up and how we ought to act towards those that we've wronged, those questions are going to come up. Like, you can't bury your head in the sand and sort of pretend that it hasn't happened. This is what the Catholic Church has done. Most of its followers have buried their head in the sand and tried to pretend that all of this stuff hasn't happened in the Catholic Church. You can't do that. You have harmed people, and you're supporting the organization that have harmed people. So no, I don't have to, like, it's not like I forgive or not forgive you, but I'm not letting you off the hook for supporting an organization that has caused so much harm, that has put underage women in marriages, you know, especially to the leaders of the organizations of LDS that has been out there, who have put young girls in this position and convincing them that they have to marry someone incredibly older than themselves because that's what a God wants. You don't get to run away from that if you're still supporting that organization. You have to open your eyes and somehow account for your support of that organization. Just like the Catholics have to open their eyes and acknowledge they're supporting an organization which did cover up child SA. You have to. If not, then you're complicit in what they're doing. If you want to bury your head in the sand and just support them no matter what they're doing, you are complicit.
Yeah.
The same as if a Nazi like a German person buries his head in the sand and doesn't want to see what the Nazis are doing. You're complicit at that point. Sorry, Amber, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were saying earlier, you could keep your religion, just walk away from the organization that's doing the harm. You could still be like we were saying earlier, you could still be Christian. I'm not sure how you could be a Catholic without a pope, but you could keep to the strictures of the religion itself, the doctrine of the religion itself, and just no longer be associated with Catholicism.
Well, you can. It's called a sedeventialist. It's basically they think that the Pope, Vatican Council was the end of the Pope's kind of thing. So basically, all of the new stuff, like hey, gays are this, and sort of all of the apologies they've made, you just don't accept anything after a certain thing. And apparently, they're Catholics as well.
Like that.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. I was surprised because I was in a debate. And I sort of said, hey, the Pope admits that evolution is true. I think it was an evolution one against some Catholics. And Vaticanism. Yeah, Vaticanism. It basically, they said, yeah, we don't accept what the current Pope says, basically.
Yeah, that's, I don't think, I don't know, that doesn't compute to me. Maybe it's because I've never been Catholic myself, but I don't think you're allowed to do that. Like, that's the whole point, is the Pope is infallible and is the big cheese.
Yeah, you're welcome to stay, Caden. I've said my piece. I've said what I'm going to say, and yeah, that's all. That's cool. I just if you bring up a church and say, hey, they're better than the Catholics, sorry, mate, I've got to comment on it. It's going to happen. And yeah, I think you may be thinking of the Seventh-day Adventists, who are the richest church, mostly because I believe they control. It might be Sanitarium, I think, and a whole bunch of other companies. They're incredibly rich as well, mostly due to their commercial kind of stuff, I think. I'm not sure though. But they're all incredibly, incredibly rich.
There's so much fucking money.
Yeah.
LDS and the Catholics and Joel Osteen and between them and the corporations, it's a wonder there's any money for any of the rest of us.
Well, they worked out that tithing, they're onto a good thing. Like, if you just take 10% of everybody's wages, you will make a ridiculous amount of money. If you've got 1 point something billion Catholics in the world, and you take 10% of it, you have a gross amount of money under your belt. That's all that it is.
If you see what I mean, therefore.
Sorry, were you saying something?
Oh, just random gay capitalism.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not really even capitalism. It's just,
that's
just
true.
law of large numbers, really. Even a small percentage works out to be a lot.
Yeah, they were practicing that system long before even to capitalism. Like, it was just economics at that point. Like, one step removed from barter trade.
Yeah.
The stimulus to crime, the impetus to crime, the belief in certainty, the belief that a divine warrant entitles you to do whatever you like, is the sin that must be cancelled, that must be annealed, that must somehow be apologized for. Now, I don't wish any. That's perfect timing. I don't wish any ill on any fellow primate or mammal of mine, even if this primate or mammal claims to be a primate in possession of a secret that's denied to me. I can forgive even that because I live in a country where their reign doesn't run, their writ doesn't apply. And they can't burn me and silence me and censor me any more than they can tell my wife she can't use contraception, or any more than they can really tell Stephen that he's a beast. So I don't at all look forward to the death of Joseph Ratzinger, I don't. Or any other pope, not really. Except for one tiny reason which I ought to confess and share with you. When he dies, there's quite a long interval till the conclave can meet. Maybe Cardinal Law will still be on it to pick another pope. Sometimes it goes on for months till they get the white smoke. And for that whole time, that whole interval, it's a delicious, lucid interlude, there isn't anyone on earth who claims to be infallible. Isn't that nice? All I want to propose in closing is this, that if the human species is to rise to the full height that's demanded by its dignity and by its intelligence, we must all of us move to a state of affairs where that condition is permanent. And I think we should get on with it. Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Madam.
Okay. Wow, Hitchens, that was probably the best performance he has ever done. Sort of the holding to account these people is just incredible. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. That closing sentence, it reminds me of some of my favorite novels that come up from time to time, the Mars series by Kim Stanley Robinson. After the Martians finally win their independence from the Earthlings, they have a constitutional Congress, and the resident anarchist comes to the Congress and he goes, well, how are all the cities running things while you're all up here doing this meet and greet, figuring out how to build a government? And they say, oh, well, they're just, running things at a local level and handling things, one issue at a time. And he says, why don't you just tell them to keep doing that and set all this centralized authority business aside? Like when the Pope dies, just leave it that way, maybe. I don't know.
Well, a lot of things that they do, I mean, they're so conservative. A lot of things they do, they just do because of tradition. It's just traditional to do that. So they just keep doing it. At a certain point, it just becomes traditional. You don't even have a reason for doing that anymore. It's just how it is done. We're kind of weird like that as humans. I think we will just keep doing things because that's the way we've been doing it. It's very hard to change at that point.
Yeah, sadly. I don't know. Humans get set in their ways, and then we have to have a big old cultural throwdown to try to dislodge people from it.
Yeah. I want to know how you're feeling, because we're halfway through and it's been 2.5 hours, over 2.5 hours now. I'm not sure I want to do 5 hours of this. I'm wondering whether you do want to go to a part 2 or not.
Yeah, we can do a part 2. I didn't have anything
Are you
particular
okay to
in
do
mind for
that?
next week, and there's
Yeah.
a lot to cover.
Okay, we'll take down the timestamps. Basically, at half an hour, geez, 2.5 hours, we get through half an hour. It's just crazy. It'll also probably help that we break it up, because I was kind of worried about copyright for this one, but I think we're doing enough, change or transformative content to accommodate for it. I always do get.
Yeah.
I think so. I always get a bit worried about it because I don't want to just show this to just show it. I want to actually add things from us and our perspective to it to make that transformation. I think. I think that Onaiyekan, I think he was probably the most flaccid. Like, usually when you're starting off a debate, right, you want to start with your strongest person, That's why Hitchens is first, right? Because I love Stephen Fry. I love him as a person. He is a good debater. He's a very smart man. But Hitchens, this is his element. This is where he loves to be. And railing against the horrible things of religion is where he loves to be. So you open with your strongest person. So the idea that Onaiyekan is their strongest is just because he was completely flaccid. He talked about the community. He talked about good things that individuals do. He talked about what he believes. He believes them to be a force for good. None of it actually was anything good that the Catholic Church has ever done. He didn't point out a single thing. And Hitchens came in and just pointed out some of the most horrific evils in the world committed by this institution.
Yep. I can't get the image of Kent Hovind doing the whacking atheist thing out of my head, like just whack, 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 whack. I blame Apologia.
What? Whack an atheist on who?
Apologia. He did. He normally does Toast to Toast AM on our Friday nights, but his co-host was out of town this weekend, so he just did a solo show. And when he does a solo Apologia live, he plays this music video that's based on Kent Hovind's Whack an Atheist thing. And
okay.
Yeah, so it's stuck in my head.
That's okay. No, yeah. It's all good. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just jealous because I haven't been whacked by Hovind yet. I'm totally jealous. I'm totally jealous. I think it's because I don't really have anything that he likes to pick. He likes to pick on people's differences and sort of anything that he can childishly point out is not what he deems to be acceptable. So he likes picking on people's sexuality, picking on people's, the way they do their videos kind of thing. I guess I'm really boring. I don't really have that much to pick on, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm selling myself short. Do you have any thoughts on the debate so far, though, before we wrap it up?
I mean, I've been pretty verbose with my thoughts over the course of the thing.
No,
yeah,
really?
Pretty much. I think we're on the same page with this. The Archbishop was just, the church is so wonderful because, it's what I grew up in. I was indoctrinated to think it's wonderful, right, and therefore it's wonderful. And then Hitchens comes on and just, no. Bad church. Yeah. Down boy.
Yeah. Bad church. Not good. Not good. Yeah, but I think that's a good place to wrap up. Thank you so much all for joining us. There will be a part 2. It's just we like to halve it if possible, so we don't do a 4 hours on one and 1 hour on another kind of thing. That sucks because the second one is so short. So yeah, I do apologize. We'll get back to it. Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Ems. It's delightful as always. We'll be on your channel next week for the part 2 because I have to be there for Stephen Fry. I have to be because it's Stephen Fry. I love Stephen Fry. He's a gentle, wonderful person, and I love everything about him. Okay, yeah. So my banner. What happened with my banner? So apparently I've got so many members, I can't fit them on the banner now. I'm not even joking. I cannot fit the list on StreamYard's banner. So I've had to do a different banner, and you'll see that when the stream ends. So, first world problems, granted. But yes, this is why I hadn't updated my banner in a while, because the banner doesn't fit everybody. And I cannot... as much as it frustrated me, I am so appreciative of everybody for supporting me so much that I have exceeded the word limit or the character limit of my banner on StreamYard. So I really appreciate it. No, I've got something. You'll see. It's a good problem to have. Absolutely, yes. That's an amazing problem to have, and I'm over the moon about it. But it was frustrating trying to get a banner to work on something else. StreamYard was easy, but hey, you know, you made it hard for me, and I love it. I love every second. So thank you. But Ember, what do you have coming up, Ems? What's on? What's going?
Well, chaos and confusion as per usual. But tomorrow, we're gonna do a Sunday show. It's not the usual Sunday show that we used to do.
Okay.
Alan Parr had Dr. Dan Biddle on his channel not that long ago. Alan Parr, you may recall, is the pro-slavery African-American apologist who also thinks the Shroud of Turin is real.
Really weird.
So he had Dan Biddle on to talk about how we know the flood is totes legit. Because Dan Biddle's promoting a movie. So I thought it might be fun to, dunk on that nonsense for a little while before Bad Science Sunday. And then there's Bad Science Sunday, because I have Monday off to go do Eclipse things, so it's a time that I can actually do Bad Science Sunday. So yeah, my show will be a lead into Maya's show as per usual, but yeah. So double header. Good times.
Yeah. Fantastic. And you've also got the transposition. I'll link to that because that is a new channel. So if you do want the trans perspective on things, which I think is really valuable, and I love that you're doing that. Yeah. So Bad Science. Oh, I will get Maya's channel as well.
Yeah.
Where have you hidden?
Yes,
Sorry,
come
I'm
worship the goddess and join the weasel cult.
Join the weasel cult. Yeah. Bathe yourself in weasel juice. There's a callback I didn't think I'd be making, but there you go.
Oh, I did not think when we decided to do, atheist advocacy. There we go.
That's a word. Yep.
Yes. There's syllables in there somewhere.
Oh, look, I totally.
I never thought we'd be talking about weasel juice. I was like, yeah, we can dunk on Yahweh and this Jesus nuts. No, here we are, weasel juice. Okay.
Weasel juice. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I will probably I want to get some more interviews going, and I want to interview a whole range of people, and I think that'll be fine. I want to promote just quickly my gaming channel. If you do like games, at the moment I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 with Justin from the Wavelength, and I'm playing by myself Elden Ring, which is incredibly hard and makes me frustrated and makes me sad, makes me cry. And I'm playing a playthrough as Leonidas from the 300. So that is actually I'm enjoying a lot. So yeah, I might do my gaming channel, which is Beast of the Mark. Yeah, so if you want to have some fun, I'm over there having fun, less serious topics, less serious stuff, just enjoying playing games, basically. So I'll link that. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I really look forward to next one. We can sort of sum up. And yeah, as someone mentioned, Anne Widdecombe's voice is annoying. Yes, it is, but that is balanced out by how wonderful Stephen Fry is to listen to. So, there's a balance there. You've got to have the balance, absolutely. And I'll send this over to you, Ember, this thing. I might edit it, like change it a little bit, but I'll send it over. Is there anything else we need to go through before we go? I guess like and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to Ember if you're not already. I know there's a lot of overlap between our channels, which is totally understandable. But yeah, maybe do like the video if you did enjoy what we've presented. If not, that's okay too. I understand. I forgive you. You don't need
You're
forgiveness.
absolved of your sins.
Yeah, well, if you send me money, I will forgive you. I'm basically the Catholic Church now. If you, I will take money for remission of your sin of not liking the video. How about that? We'll all act like the Catholic Church. But it's not me forgiving you. It's my friend who is actually really powerful and has the power to forgive people. This is getting ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, really. No, are you imaginary? No, you're very, very real. Yeah, you do have a very good hat, though. But thank you, everybody, so much. And don't forget, as I always say, be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. And take care of each other, because we're all human. We're all vulnerable. We all need help from people. And we care if how you go. We don't care about your God, but we care about you. So, yeah. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Night, folks.